Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Macaw Podcast Universe.
Hello.
My name is Micah Macaw.
My name is Jordan Macaw.
We are married, and we've
Yep.
been doing this podcast for 5 freaking years now.
What? Really?
Yes, we have. And this is a series that we're starting today. Well, okay, we exist to prove people wrong when they say,
Sequels are never better than the originals.
and we are doing a series that we have put in our, diamond tier, where it is like, someday we're going to cover this, but we either want to have, a really great guest, or we want to have podcasted enough that we feel confident that we can do a good episode.
And we don't want to do all the good ones. We don't want to use them all up.
This one is a big one for you, right?
Yeah.
And it's a big one for me too.
Yeah.
So, as some people may or may not know, Spider-Man is my favorite character.
Of anything, right?
Of anything.
And I mean, it
Yes.
has to be if you've read over 1,000 things.
Yes. So, and when I was a kid, I saw this movie, and I was like, oh my gosh, this is like everything that I want.
Was this the first Spider-Man thing you saw?
This was my introduction to Spider-Man.
Love it.
And I saw this, and then I was like, I remember maybe it was a few weeks later, I was at I can't remember the timeline exactly, but I was at a Fred Meyer and I saw The Amazing Spider-Man on sale, like a comic, like a new issue. And so I bought one.
Fred Meyer sells comic books?
I don't think they still do, but they
Oh.
did at one point. Bought one, and then I think I bought another one. I mean, my mom bought them for me, and I'm like, oh, can you buy this, Get it. And in that, there was no, I am getting my timeline mixed up. So pause on that. We went to Barnes & Noble because I knew it was based on comic books, and they had these Marvel Masterworks, and it'd be like issues 1 through 10 or whatever. And so throughout time, and I think I actually spent my own money on these. I'd save up, and I'd buy like Volume 1, Volume 2, Volume 3, and then I got up to Volume 4.
Mhm.
And I think that's all they had reprinted at that point.
Mm-hmm.
But I had always desired to read all of it.
Mm-hmm.
Now, this is a character that premiered in 1962. There's a lot to read of this character. So then Fred Meyer saw it, and I was like, they're still like making new ones? Because, this is like pre-internet stuff.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, the internet's out there, but it's like you're a kid. You don't know how to use this stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm like, they're still making this? So I see it, and the numbering is like in the 500s. And I'm like, oh my gosh, there's so much that I have not read and is missing. What am I going to do? And then I saw an ad in one of those issues, and it was for Sam Goody. And it was, you could spend $50 at Sam Goody, and you'd get on CD-ROM issues 1 through 500. And I was like, this is it. I got to do this. So I did that, and I would sit on my computer, especially in the summer, and wake up and read an issue, read 2 issues,
How
whatever.
is it any different than how you live your life now?
Yeah, not a lot has changed. But as is what happens a lot, I fell out of comic books. Much like, I've heard on our friend podcast, Screw It Comics, Kevin Hines has mentioned how, a lot of people around college age kind of drop out, or even earlier. Or no, like in high school, a lot of people drop out of comics, and then a lot of times around college, people rediscover them.
Mm-hmm.
So a few years ago, I was just like, man, I'm really feeling the itch, and I sat down and did it, and then I started from Amazing Fantasy number 15, where Spider-Man premiered, and then I went through and I read every single issue of Amazing Spider-Man. And Mini Spectacular, Mini Web of Spider-Man, mini extras. I've read easily over 1,000 issues and stories about Spider-Man.
Mm-hmm.
So when I tell you...
And I saw this movie and loved it. Thought it was so freaking cool. Wished I was Spider-Man so bad. All I wanted to do was swing from building to building. And when we got the video game tie-in to the movie, all I did... I never even beat the game. I didn't need to. I just wanted to swing from building to building. And
we discovered that was probably Spider-Man 2 video game.
Yeah, probably.
Yeah.
And I think this makes me a little bit more of an expert than you, Micah. Did you own a Spider-Man skateboard?
No, I did not. I did
don't
not.
think so.
Oh, yeah, she's crossing her arms. Well, all of that to say that I think I am actually an expert in Spider-Man.
Yeah.
And I'm excited to talk about it. And but as far as my experience with this movie, it's sort of a little bit funny because I remember being at the theaters in 2002. I don't know what I saw, but Spider-Man was playing, and I walked by the theater, and it was like, I kind of want to see whatever this movie is. Because, I think it's seen the posters, and there's something about, we've seen it with our nieces and nephews, even before they started watching the Spidey show on Disney Plus. There's something about, like, Spider-Man's costume that kids are just like, I like that.
Cool. It's so cool.
I think that original Steve Ditko design is probably the best, like, superhero costume anyone has ever come up with.
Probably, yeah. Other than, like, Batman.
But yeah, it's like Batman and that's the big three: Superman, Batman, and Spider-Man. It's like no one even comes close to like the iconography of those three characters. Although I think right now in time, I feel like Spider-Man is way more popular because simply because the movies are so ever present.
I do think that Batman is just about equal if you really think about it.
Yeah. Well, and I hope Superman kind of comes back with a vengeance next year.
There's a real good chance.
Yeah. But all of that to say, I go when I'm a little kid. 2002, I'd be like 9.
Nope.
8 or 9.
Oh, yeah, maybe.
And I'm hearing this movie play, and I walk by to go to the bathroom.
You pop your head in?
And no, but I heard...
that would have not been like Micah.
No. But I heard this character say...
Or like Mike, sorry.
Oh my God. And
on the TV.
In the theater,
movie,
I heard that, and that was I was like, oh my gosh, like that sounds, that's like crazy. That movie like bad is what I was thinking, and it was the scene where the Green Goblin like shoots the bunker.
Okay, yeah,
and also I was hearing like screaming and explosions, so I'm like, is this movie like crazy?
Yeah.
And so then, Tyler Shoup, a fellow classmate at the time, had seen the movie, and I was like, oh my gosh, was it like so bad? And he's like, oh, they just said that the one time. The movie's great. It's so awesome. And he told me all about it, and I was like, I gotta see this movie. Finally comes out on Blockbuster.
Oh, so you did not catch it in theaters?
Didn't catch it in theaters.
I don't remember if I did or not.
Yeah.
But, I bet I didn't.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then my parents rented it.
Yeah.
And they watched it.
Okay.
First to clear it, because it was a PG-13 movie.
Of course. Yeah.
And then the next day I watched it, and that was all she wrote. And this
I should ask my parents. I don't think that they were ever those kinds of parents.
Yeah, it was only
they've
sometimes.
Ever screened anything. I think they were just like, I think it's gonna be okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
But my dad wasn't a pastor.
Right. But yeah, and then this was like a buy at one point, and we watched this movie all the time.
Yeah, I think
all the time.
I think we might have owned this one too.
Yeah.
I loved it so much.
Yeah. And so, do you want to talk about your experience with just the movie?
I don't have a specific. I can't remember the first time I watched it. I just remember that I loved it, and it was up in the pantheon of Lord of the Rings, Spider-Man, Star Wars. Those are some of the great movies. But I think maybe this is just how I feel. I don't know this for sure. But it feels like Spider-Man felt like mine.
Okay.
Like Lord of the Rings was my dad's.
Okay.
And it became mine. He shared that with us.
Yeah.
And that's a big part of why I love Lord of the Rings so much, because my dad shared.
But it's like he's saying like, this is this great story that I've read as a kid and stuff.
And Star Wars felt so cultural, and they're older movies, so it is like it almost feels like I'm an American and I watched Star Wars when I was a kid, and I was told, and no, it's one of the best series ever. Even the prequels. As a kid, like these are so good.
You saw the prequels in theaters, probably,
I did.
right?
Oh yeah, okay. And I was the perfect age, as we talked about in our Star Wars. So I loved all of them. And then, but something about Spider-Man felt like our generation.
Yeah. Oh, definitely. Yeah.
Yeah.
But it's funny because it came out at the same time as Lord of the Rings and Harry Potter, so it's all like.
Yeah, but my dad doesn't have any affinity to comics. Didn't know anything about Spider-Man. They probably just heard like, this movie's cool, it's good, kids love it.
Yeah.
And we watched it. And I didn't watch Harry Potter at that time.
Oh, I had
I wouldn't have been allowed to.
Oh, okay. Your parents were screening it?
Yeah. Wait, Harry Potter? I doubt they screened it.
No, you just said earlier that you didn't think your parents
Yeah.
screened. I was just kidding.
I'm sure just years went by and they're like, I don't care anymore.
Yeah.
Well, because I did watch it as a kid at some point.
So this is just a big one.
You know what it was?
What?
And I probably said this on the Harry Potter podcast. I can't remember, but I know that my aunt read Harry Potter to my cousins.
Right.
And I remember thinking like, well, they go to public school, so it's fine. But I was also like, man, cool. I wish I could.
Yeah.
And then I'm sure because of that kind of stuff, my parents were like, whatever.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, this is a big one, and this is a big linchpin for me of who I am as a person.
Yes.
And I still read The Amazing Spider-Man thick and thin. Currently reading some not so good stuff. I think the current run is not the best.
Well, when you read that many, you have to read all of them, good and bad.
Yeah. And the thing that I learned through reading 900 plus issues of Amazing Spider-Man, but more of other Spider-Man stories, is that you do see how, and they've actually kind of done this with the movies a little bit, you see how they can make silly story mistakes that are dumb, and then a writer later can actually make it like, well, that was dumb, but it was worth it because they got to this story, which is cool.
Yeah.
And that's
a weird thing about comics. That's, it's
pretty unique to the genre, but at the same time,
medium.
The medium. But at the same time, like, they did do that in Spider-Man Homecoming. Not Homecoming, in No Way Home. Because, like,
with Mysterio?
With Andrew Garfield.
Oh, Amazing Spider-Man. Wait, what? Okay, sorry. I understand now. Yeah.
They did it with him because I watched that movie, and it was like, it made me think that the Amazing Spider-Man movies were good. And that when Gwen Stacy died, it was earned. That this movie...
I never saw that one.
Yeah, but it retroactively made a pretty cheap death.
Yeah.
Like, it felt earned in the movie when he caught Zendaya, I think. You were like, oh my gosh, he redeemed himself.
I know. Yeah.
So they have done it in the movies, too.
So I've heard in Amazing Spider-Man 2 that I know that happens.
Yeah.
Famous comic book moment.
Yeah. Oh, one of the great runs.
I think I've even seen that. I like looked up that scene. Yeah. And have heard it's so abrupt.
Yeah.
Did any of it feel, though, where they were like, well, we're going to make a third one?
Oh, they definitely plan to make more.
Yeah.
But like, Spider-Man is admittedly something where even when it's bad, I'm still pretty invested in it. So I didn't even really hate that movie when I saw it. But I as I was watching it, I was like, this is not good. Mm-hmm. Like, I knew it wasn't good, but I was just like, but he's swinging, and I like that. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. But that's good for me.
It was kind of one of those things where they're like, well, this is, one of the most famous Spider-Man stories, so we're going to put it in the last 5 minutes of the movie. And you're like, really unearned.
I feel like that's when I found out that comic books are so vast that different parts in comic book history, like Peter Parker had different girlfriends.
Yeah.
Because I only ever thought it was only Mary Jane.
Yeah.
No matter what. And then it's like, so who's this Gwen Stacy person? She sounds like she sucks.
Right. But she was, in fact, the one for him for a very, very long time.
Longer than Mary Jane? And first?
Now I got to go back to like the first 100 issues of Spider-Man. I think I'm pretty sure he meets Mary Jane first, but he dates Gwen Stacy first. Mm-hmm. And he dates her until she dies. Mm. And so a lot of times writers who are good, like Dan Slott, can really make that a guilty thing for him even later in his life. Although at this point, I'm a little done with Gwen Stacy callbacks. I'm a little like, I get it.
In the comic books?
Yeah.
Okay.
But it's been a while since they've done one, so someone could probably do it again. Spider-Man 2002.
Yeah.
Here we go. So let's talk about this movie. We fortunately, for the first time on the podcast, get to talk about one of my favorite directors. I believe one of your favorite directors, Sam Raimi.
Is he one of my favorite directors?
I would think so, but maybe I'm wrong.
He's great.
I've seen most of his movies. I think I've seen like 80% of his movies.
You have?
There's a couple.
Now I gotta look.
No, I'm saying I have. Not
I know.
Oh, I thought you said
I gotta look.
But yeah. I mean, take us from the top if you want.
Of what, his movies?
Yeah, I mean, if you want to look at them.
Best known for Evil Dead.
Yeah, the Evil Dead
and
movies.
What's come after that? What's Darkman?
Darkman is a Liam Neeson superhero movie. And It's funny because when you
cool poster.
Yeah, when you watch Evil Dead, you think like, how did this guy make Spider-Man? When you watch Darkman, you go, oh, this is like Spider-Man before Spider-Man. It's darker, but it is definitely like all of the artistic flares and the storytelling is totally there.
So you've not seen Oz the Great and Powerful, though.
That's one of the ones I have not seen.
He also did, though, Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness, so we have talked about him.
Oh, we have talked about him. Yeah, that's true.
Oh, yeah, we watched The Gift.
Uh-huh.
Evil Dead 2. Did we watch Army of Darkness?
We did. Yeah, that's the one where he goes to medieval times.
Okay. And he's basically is like, kiss me, bitch. Doesn't he say that to her?
I think that was my favorite one.
Did he say that? He probably said baby. He probably didn't.
I think he did. By then they're going full schlock. It's crazy.
Yeah. I liked that one too. I think that's my favorite one. You just said that about you. Yeah, Evil Dead, let's get into that a little bit for a second.
Well, I mean, we should cover it someday.
Oh, then let's not talk about it.
Oh, but we can talk a little bit about it cuz
I guess I have seen a lot of his movies.
Mhm. He's an American staple.
I've never really taken the time. What's For the Love of the Game? Is that good?
That's one I haven't seen.
He's such a weird. He has made such weird movies. So when I see things like For the Love of the Game, A Simple Plan, whatever this is,
Simple Plan, have not seen. Heard it's one of his best.
Really?
Yeah, that it's a real sharp thriller.
Billy Bob, Bill Paxton.
Yeah. 3
blue-collar acquaintances come across millions of dollars in lost cash and make a plan to keep their find from the authorities, but it isn't long before complications and mistrust weave their way into the plan.
Now, before you go away from that, see, what you have to remember is him and the Coen brothers are friends.
They are?
And they kind of came up at the same time.
I didn't know that.
So him making a Simple Plan is kind of like, hey, I'm making a Coen brothers movie.
Got an 81 Metascore.
Yeah. I know. We need to watch it.
We watched The Gift while I was on maternity leave.
Yes.
Not the movie I thought I wanted, unfortunately.
No, not a
great movie. Drag Me to Hell. They
Great
killed
movie.
a kitten.
Awesome.
I did not like it.
Awesome movie.
I did not like that movie.
That movie rocks so hard.
Wow, I've seen a lot of his movies.
Yeah.
Didn't know that.
Have you seen The Quick and the Dead? Quick and the Dead's fun.
What's that?
Sharon Stone, Leonardo DiCaprio, I think Gene Hackman, Western.
How have I not seen this movie?
It's a fun movie. Is it Gene Hackman in that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I want to watch this.
Yeah, it's good.
So, you wanted to talk about Evil Dead?
No, you said that, and I said go ahead.
I know, I'm fine. I'll wait.
All right.
For the day we cover it.
So, the movie Sam Raimi makes before Spider-Man is The Gift, which is a Cate Blanchett star. It's not that good. It's not unwatchable. But
it's not good, but there is a hilarious Katie Holmes is in it.
Yeah,
and she is really young. And I guess it sounds like I'm being really mean, but it's hilarious. She's like having affairs.
Yeah.
And there's this flashback to show like what really happened and what's really happening. Yeah. And she says to her boyfriend, she opens up her shirt, bare chested, and basically Arrested Development style Kitty. These are the last time you're ever going to see these.
Yeah.
And then she gets killed.
Yeah,
spoiler alert. But
according to Blank Check, there's a lot of evidence that's part of the reason Katie Holmes' career kind of tanked.
Which is, you hear about that every once in a while.
Yeah.
Where an actress, I think it is mostly actresses, not actors.
I don't know of anyone that's
I don't know of any actors
that's been canceled.
No,
you know?
So of women who have gone nude.
Yeah.
Gone in the buff, and it's killed their careers.
Yeah.
It's like a terrible choice. So crazy.
But she still has Batman after this, so
what?
Know. Well, I'm just saying.
What has she done after that?
That's a bigger movie than.
No, it is. It is.
Than The Gift.
She's not very good in it.
Yeah. But anyway, The Gift is okay. But one thing I learned after we watched it is he was in heavy pre-production for Spider-Man.
Yeah.
When they were editing the movie, and he didn't like help with the edit.
Yeah,
and when you realize that,
evident.
You're like, okay, this movie could probably be 20% better by him editing it.
Yeah.
Not that he's the editor,
overseeing
but overseeing the editing. So he does that. Screenplay is by David Koepp, who did Jurassic Park 1 and 2, Indiana Jones 4, the first Mission Impossible. The guy's a staple. He knows how to write good scripts. The cinematography is by Don Burgess, who did 2018's Aquaman. He did Castaway. He got an Oscar win for Forrest Gump. The music is by Danny Elfman. We're returning to Elfman after Burton used him for the Batman movies.
This is such an iconic score.
Oh my goodness. This one is like number 1 to 3 for me. For like anytime I hear it, it's like Pavlovian. Yeah. The movie comes out May 3rd, 2002. It has a $139 million budget. Pretty big budget for them. In the U.S.
All those spiders.
Which we're going to talk about a little bit. We know about the Spider Wrangler. In the U.S., it makes $403 million. Huge.
Wow.
Worldwide, it makes $821.
Yeah.
And this is the first film to reach $100 million in a weekend.
What? Wow, that's cool.
So now, strap in, Jordan.
Well, should we go over some actors just to cut it up?
I think I should do a little bit, and then you should go over actors. That's how many notes I have.
Okay.
Because Okay, so first of all, they started attempting to make a Spider-Man movie in 1975.
I believe that, based on this podcast.
Yeah. And so there are 3 other Spider-Man movies before this. There's a movie that came out in 1977, and it's a pilot episode, like longer episode for the Amazing Spider-Man live-action TV show that aired.
Have you seen it?
No. And then they made a follow-up to that as well, but it's like airing on TV kind of thing. And then there is a Japanese movie as well.
The cartoon?
No.
Oh.
This is the Spider-Man.
When did the cartoon
Dragon's
come out?
Challenge. I'm
after
not sure.
this movie?
I didn't check that.
Okay.
I didn't know.
Okay.
Oh no, but not after this movie. There's one from like the 70s or 80s, I think.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
Because it's like the one that they're showing in Spider-Verse at the end of the movie. But yeah, those movies, I mean, yes, they're movies, but they're not like theatrical. These are not like huge movies, you know. So back to like real movies. Toby Hooper is the first guy that they are talking to create Spider-Man, who of course did Poltergeist and Texas Chainsaw Massacre.
Like, is he a director? Oh, the director of Poltergeist?
Yeah, Toby Hooper.
That guy also did Texas Chainsaw?
Yeah, that was his
I don't think I've ever made that connection.
premiere, I think. I think his
That's
first movie was
wild.
Texas Chainsaw.
We should watch Poltergeist again.
Yeah, we should. Well, he allegedly directed that
allegedly
movie.
directed that movie, yeah.
But the producers who owned the rights to Spider-Man at the time, I guess you read this kind of thing, especially with superheroes, it's like they just hear something and they're like, oh, that could make money, whatever, and they don't do any research at all because he instructs people to write the story, this producer, and he's like, yeah, he's like a guy who gets bitten by a radioactive spider and turns into a big spider monster.
Oh,
and
nice. So they get like the weirdest script.
Yeah, so they write the screenplay that's like Wolfman-esque.
Or The Fly.
Yeah. So that's what the first movie like was attempted to be.
Oh, no.
And Stan Lee kind of hears about it and is a part of it, and he's like, let's maybe not do that. And he's like, he pushes for Doc Ock to be in this movie.
Wow, okay.
And so then Joseph Zito.
Question.
Yes.
Who's more of a classic villain, Green Goblin or Doc Ock?
Well, this is the great debate, actually.
Oh, really?
I would say.
But I'm asking someone who's read every issue of The Amazing Spider-Man.
And I think anyone who's read every issue is probably going to say either one or the other.
Cool. So they got both.
I think you would probably say. I think Green Goblin. Most people are like, well, that's his Joker, and he killed Gwen Stacy.
Oh.
You know, he's like his huge, villain. But to me, I think Doc Ock is like his ultimate villain.
Okay.
And
question.
Not to go too crazy on it, but I think what I love is I think Dan Slott, who's written the most Spider-Man issues, I think he recognized that, and that's part of why he does the Superior Spider-Man run, which is amazing, where Doc Ock becomes Spider-Man.
Oh, yeah, you've told me about that.
It's like one of the coolest things I've ever read.
Yeah. Okay, second question.
Yeah.
In the video game that you played, what is it called?
Spider-Man.
Okay.
The new Spider-Man.
New one.
Not Spider-Man 2, but the 2018 game Jordan is talking about.
In that game, the story is he works for Doc Ock as like an intern, maybe as a job.
Yep. Yeah.
And is that something that's been in the comic books? Is that often because it's like they're friends, and then through his research, he grows crazy, and it's like his pride. But I know it's not just the pride. When in the second movie, it's his. I mean, his wife motivates a lot of his craziness.
Yeah.
Well, not just that. I know it's the stuff.
Remember, you've actually read Doc Ock's premiere. because we've read Spider-Man comics to Talia, and it was much simpler. It was just like scientists, experiment goes wrong, he's got octopus arms. Of course, as they write more, they'll like, add stuff to the backstory and stuff. As far as I can remember and recall, at least as far as The Amazing Spider-Man goes, that was the first time I had seen that relationship between
I like that a lot.
mentor and in that way.
Yeah.
But I think comics have definitely played upon, like, here's this great scientist and he's using it for evil. Peter wants to be a scientist and he's using it for good.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Who's the bad guy in the new video game?
Well, I know they'd have the symbiote, so I'm assuming there's some Venom stuff in there.
Okay.
I don't know. I would really like to play it, but I have to get a PlayStation 5, even though I just got a 4. So the Tobe Hooper movie doesn't go ahead, and they replace him with Joseph Zito, who directed Chuck Norris's Invasion USA. So they're tapping him to direct it, and Stan Lee is expressing interest in playing J. Jonah Jameson.
Okay, that's cool. I like that.
Which, especially when you read the comics, you can hear Stan Lee's voice.
Really?
Even though, of course he wrote it, so you hear, I kind of hear his voice on all those like 100 first issues. But I mean, he kind of is like proto J. Jonah Jameson.
Okay,
like
sure.
That's kind of who he is.
Yeah.
And so seeing that would be pretty great. I don't know if he has like the acting chops to pull it off.
Yeah.
But it's a pretty great
Well, we'll never
casting.
know.
Yeah, we will never know. And so, but around this time, Superman 4, A Quest for Peace comes out.
Okay.
And that's a huge bomb.
What is that?
That's a movie. That's
Spider-Man 4?
Superman 4, A Quest for Peace.
Gosh, okay, sorry.
I know, I'm taking you through a lot here.
Is that the one that they were talking about on Comedy Bang Bang?
With John Cryer, yeah.
Okay. And Gene Hackman?
I guess he's
in that too.
Have you seen
that movie?
I have not seen 4,
okay.
No. I think I got like halfway through 3 and I was like, I don't want to watch these anymore. And I know someday we'll probably cover them.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
So that happens, and they like totally slash the budget to this Spider-Man movie because they're like, people don't want superhero movies. Yeah. And then Zito leaves, and then there's a ton of. I won't get totally into the specifics of this, but there's a lot of rights, and like this company gets bankrupt, and then they're gonna leverage Spider-Man rights so that they can stay. A lot of weird stuff like that. That's not that interesting to talk about.
But eventually, Sony gets it.
And no, we're not even there yet.
Oh, okay.
Eventually, they tap Stephen Derrick to direct it, the director of Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure.
Okay.
Which actually makes sense to me on paper.
Yeah.
But then that doesn't come through. And then, folks, you may not know about this, but a little unknown director named Mr. James Cameron decides to make Spider-Man. And he writes a screenplay, and he is like so intent on doing this movie. And that's where I am going to pause. And you can hit some actors, and then we'll come back, because I got to tell you the wild details of James Cameron's Spider-Man.
Okay. So, we have never talked about Tobey Maguire, who plays Peter Parker /
Unless we talked about it on No Way Home, but we should revisit him anyway.
Hopefully we were like, let's just save it.
I think we probably were. So,
leading up to this movie, he is in movies such as Empire Records, The Ice Storm, Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas, Pleasantville, Cider House Rules, Wonder Boys.
And I'll mention Cider House Rules was the movie Sam Raimi saw and wanted to cast him as Spider-Man.
Oh, cool. And Cats and Dogs, famously.
Is he in that?
He's a voice.
Oh, wow.
And then Spider-Man. A year later, wow, he goes on a crazy run.
Okay.
So he does Spider-Man. Next year he does Seabiscuit.
Yeah.
Next year he does Spider-Man 2. Then he does a ton of video game stuff, obviously.
Uh-huh.
Then he's in Spider-Man 3. Wow. That's a lot.
Yeah.
But yeah, he's also been The Great Gatsby, Pawn Sacrifice.
He doesn't act much anymore.
He does not.
No.
Also in this is Kirsten Dunst, who plays Mary Jane Watson.
Yes.
Around this time, she is in things such as Mike and I were just talking about where I always forget that she was a child actor
Yeah.
So she is in Interview with a Vampire,
Yep.
which is a big one for her. But leading up to this movie, she's in things like The Virgin Suicides. Let's see, The Crow Salvation.
Oh.
Bring It On in 2000. Get Over It. Bring It On. Get Over It. The Cat's Meow. That looks so bad.
Oof.
But then in Spider-Man.
Yeah. And now she is, to me, she's in a status where like her and her husband, Jesse Plemons, where it's like, if they're in a movie, I know that there's at least something artistic about it. Even if it's not something I'm interested in seeing, it's like, you're not just going to get, Kirsten Dunst to just like be in some random movie for a paycheck.
Yeah.
She's going to choose something that she believes in.
Yeah.
And that's the same with Plemons too. At least that's what I recognize and see.
We've never talked about Willem.
I don't think we have.
Wow. He's a national treasure.
I mean, Hollywood's bad boy.
Is he Hollywood's bad boy?
No, I'm just calling that.
I call him a national treasure.
Yeah. He is in the same tier as Mr. Samuel L. Jackson, where a movie can be bad, but Willem Dafoe never is.
Yes.
Even if he's in a bad movie.
He is
just always brings
good.
it.
But we still need to watch at some point in our lives At Eternity's Gate, where he plays Vincent Van Gogh.
Yeah, yeah.
He's also in the Florida. Do you want me to go in where he's at in his career at this time?
Yeah, sure.
Okay, because he's already pretty huge, so that's why I didn't.
Oh, and while you're doing that, I'm gonna pull up a note I read on the collector's edition Blu-ray that we got for our wedding, and tell you about a fun story.
So leading up to this movie, he is in things like Boondock Saints, American Psycho.
Oh yeah, very good in American Psycho.
I don't remember him.
Remember, he's where they famously, he's like the the detective.
Okay.
And he comes in and they had him play the scene acting like he knew he was the killer, acting like he didn't know he was the killer, and then I think acting like he was unsure, and then they mixed all the takes up.
What?
So you're just
I didn't know that.
Oh,
That's
yeah, you're just like, what is this guy doing? Like, you can't get a read on what he thinks of the situation.
What a crazy thing.
Yeah.
Okay, but he is also in Pavilion of Women, Edges of the Lord, and then he's in Spider-Man. He's in a million other things, most recently in Poor Things.
Yeah, well, okay, so let me tell you a quick little anecdote.
Yeah.
So Rosemary Harris, I'm just reading this from the Blu-ray. Rosemary Harris played Peter Parker's Aunt May. Harris received an Academy Award nomination for her performance in 1994's Tom and Viv opposite Willem Dafoe, and enjoyed the irony of reuniting with Dafoe for Spider-Man. Tom and Viv portrayed... In Tom and Viv, Willem portrayed T.S. Eliot, and I played his mother-in-law, laughs Harris. My character was really mean to his character in that film. So with Spider-Man, it's sort of the son-in-law's revenge.
That's cute.
Very cute.
James Franco. Around this time,
Hollywood's
he was
bad boy.
Don't. He was almost unrecognizable. He looked so itty bitty, teeny weeny, wearing that yellow polka dot bikini. Leading up to this movie, wow, he wasn't really in things until like 2000, 1999.
Oh wow.
So he's Never Been Kissed, apparently.
Okay.
Freaks and Geeks. I did know that. Whoa, he's going to be in an X-Files episode. That'll be interesting. That's in 2001. And then he's apartment guy number 3 in the movie Somebody. Is
that like what's right before this?
That's in 2001. He plays James Dean in a TV movie, which makes sense to me.
Yeah.
And then he's in Spider-Man. So he's in not much. He's in a lot of TV stuff.
He's a pretty weird actor.
Yeah.
He's
Some
someone...
would say not a good person.
Yeah. But he's like someone who... He can be really, really bad.
Yeah.
And really miscast. But when people can kind of... Like in this movie, and maybe this is because this is what I was introduced to him as, when people can kind of capture the energy of his like creepy rich guy entitled vibe that he has, it really works. Which is like in the Seth Rogen movies and stuff, it kind of works because it's like he's playing off of like, well, everyone thinks I'm this pretty boy, but I suck in this movie.
Was Pineapple Express good? I never saw it.
Pineapple Express rocks, and I watched it like a year ago, and I was like, man, this movie totally holds up.
Really?
That is a good movie.
David Gordon Green.
I
should watch that sometime.
It's really fun. And James Franco is hilarious in that movie. Danny McBride kind of steals the show in that movie. Really good.
Yeah. And then he also was in The Disaster Artist. Starred.
Yeah, that's a good movie.
Starred with his brother.
Yeah.
Okay. Cliff Robertson plays Ben Parker.
Yes, Uncle Ben.
He is also in Escape from L.A. Charlie.
Oh, okay.
3 Days of Condor.
3 Days at the Condor, yeah.
3 Days of the Condor.
Of the Condor. Is it really?
Yes.
I thought it was at. I'm sorry.
The Lion's Den, 13th Child. He's a Hollywood staple.
Yeah.
Right?
I mean, I know him as Uncle Ben, so yeah, he's a Hollywood staple.
But he does seem kind of familiar. But probably just from my childhood. Rosemary Harris plays Aunt May.
Yeah.
She's in Before the Devil Knows You're Dead. The movie you said.
Tom and Viv.
Yeah, A Life of Music, The Undoing, The Money. This means war.
So I gotta do a little side note on her. Rosemary Harris is my Aunt May.
Mm-hmm.
Like, Sally Field plays her Aunt May in
She does?
Amazing Spider-Man.
I do not remember that.
And it's just not even close. As much as I love Sally. And then,
they got Sally Field?
Yeah, and then Marissa Tomei.
Well, we've talked about that.
We've talked about it, and I've come to accept that it's cool, I guess, that he has like a hot mom or hot aunt, and she's like just a smoke show. But Aunt May to me is supposed to be this frail old woman that's so full of wisdom and always is like, she's
always there for Peter.
We're the Parkers, we don't give up. And man, she's so good in this movie. And then she has like a line that goes through my head like probably once a month that she says in Spider-Man 2, which we'll get to, and probably one of my favorite scenes in a movie that's full of only my favorite scenes in Spider-Man 2. She's so perfect. And when I read the comics, I always like imagine her. And whenever she gets a little too like cool, because that can happen sometimes, I'm always like, that's not quite right. That's not really quite my Aunt May, So yeah, that's
sweet.
She's the heart and soul of Spider-Man, really.
And then, well, let's save him for last. Joe Manganiello.
Yeah.
I forget how they say his name. Manganiello?
Something like that, yeah.
He plays Flash Gordon.
Flash Thompson.
Sorry, Flash Thompson. Who's Flash Gordon?
He is like the old serials, like a superhero, yeah.
Flash Thompson. He is in Magic Mike, XXL, Jack Snyder's Justice League, True Blood, Pee-wee's Pee-wee's Big Holiday. Okay.
He was in the last season of Mythic Quest. Hilarious.
As himself. Very funny. Yeah, a lot of voice acting as well. And then is there anyone else to get to before the last person?
Is the last person what I say is the best casting of all comic book history?
Yeah. Let's just
because I think anyone else we can
that's
just
the main players.
Cover when they get there.
J.K. Simmons as Jonah Jameson.
Jonah freaking Jameson. Now, may I take this, please?
If you don't know who he is,
yeah,
he is in Juno, Whiplash, La La Land, but I am sure
you know who he is.
You know him from Spider-Man.
Yeah. So here is something that I believe with my whole heart. And it is, I believe that the casting of J.K. Simmons as J. Jonah Jameson is the best, most accurate, and most interesting casting of any superhero movie that has ever been made. He nails it so completely and so thoroughly. So completely and so thoroughly that when they had J. Jonah Jameson in a new Spider-Man movie in an alternate universe, they had no choice but to hire J.K. Simmons again. Mm-hmm. That is how like much of a staple he is. Did they do that with Spider-Man where they're like, oh yeah, we'll just bring Tobey to Marvel? I mean, it wouldn't have worked because of the age and stuff like that. But no, they didn't do that. But him, they had to bring. One day they'll probably recast Iron Man and who knows, maybe it'll work, maybe it won't. Robert Downey Jr. really put his stamp on this. But J.K. is the best casting of all time. I will die on that hill.
I'll die there right with you.
Yeah. And even something like Tobey is my favorite Spider-Man.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I'm like, yeah, but Tom Holland is a really great Spider-Man.
Yeah.
And even I would say Jake Johnson, I would put right up there with the rest as a great Spider-Man. I'm just talking about the character of Peter Parker, not like Miles Morales. I'm not including that. Because that would be a whole other conversation. But J.K. Simmons, he's the freaking guy.
Yeah.
And I love him.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So James Cameron Spider-Man movie.
Yeah.
We are going to hit an hour and I will still be doing production notes.
Get through it, buddy.
So Cameron and his wife at the time, Catherine Bigelow, are working on stuff. He is going to produce and she is going to direct an X-Men movie.
What?
Yeah. Which I would have loved to have seen her X-Men movie. But then they're in a meeting with Chris Claremont and Stan Lee. Chris Claremont is a very famous and influential X-Men writer specifically. And Lee starts kind of talking about Spider-Man and mentioning it to Cameron. And there's actually an interview with Claremont, and you could see him say, and as they were talking, I knew the X-Men died in the room right then and there. And so James Cameron starts typing away, well, probably handwriting, actually. I don't know how they did it back then. But he's going for more of a puberty metaphor. So there's like a scene where he has like a dream, like this crazy dream when he's changing, and he like wakes up and he's like covered in webbing, which is like kind of like he had like a wet dream.
Okay.
Very weird.
Yeah.
Although that is kind of there, there's some puberty stuff in Spider-Man, but maybe not so blatant.
That's weird.
The villains would have been Electro and Sandman. Leonardo DiCaprio would have been Spider-Man.
Okay.
There's a scene.
What do you think about that?
All wrong. All wrong.
Leo, no good.
No good. No,
I
good.
agree.
Especially at this time, he would have.
He's too big at this time.
He'd be coming off of Titanic
he's
as
boyish,
the heartthrob.
but he's too big.
Yeah, at this time, too cool.
Yeah,
to be Spider-Man. But there's a scene, and I kid you not, and I saw this in multiple sources, so like this is true. There's a scene where, so this movie would have probably been R, and there was like swearing and stuff in it.
No.
And so as much as I truly love James Cameron, this one seems like a total misfire. And I'm glad that this didn't happen.
He needs to come back on Comedy Bang Bang and talk about it. I want more details.
Yeah, he does need to do that. But there was a scene where Mary Jane is like webbed to the Brooklyn Bridge, and her and Peter Parker mate.
Stop. I don't want to
mask
hear
on.
it. I'm done. I'm done talking about this.
That's actually all I have on that.
Okay, good. Let's move forward.
Pretty wild. I can throw that note away.
I do know that all these like inklings though they're always the stupidest ideas.
Yeah.
And it's almost part of you is like, thank God that never got made. And it's like, that there was no way that was going to get made. Anyway.
Well, and that's part of it where it's like, okay, of course maybe he has the cachet to actually do that because he's James Cameron, but it is kind of like, yeah, a lot of times you hear about these crazy ideas and it gets whittled down to something that actually makes sense.
Yeah.
It's like, when you're spitting on a page.
Yeah.
If you don't judge it, maybe you'll come up with some weird stuff and then you cut it later. You know? But anyway, so I'm going to kind of skip this next part, but there's this whole rights thing. Cameron can do certain things and the other company can do certain things. And basically there's suing that happens and all of this stuff. And we're up to the year of 1998. No. In 1996, Coralco, which is a company that owns it, and Marvel go bankrupt. And then in 1998, Marvel emerges from bankruptcy, merging with the company Toy Biz. And the courts determined that the original contract of Marvel's rights had expired, returning the rights to Spider-Man to Marvel. So, there's all of this stuff. It's all of that stuff is kind of boring to talk about. Mm-hmm. But rights. 1997, Batman and Robin comes out, and everyone's like, yeah, superhero movies are out. We're not doing these. even though the movie rocks.
Yeah.
But then around that time, they make Blade and they make X-Men.
Okay.
2 huge hits.
Yep.
So they're like, okay, let's do this. But this is a weird thing, and I don't totally fully understand it. I just have to mention it. Columbia, someone from MGM, and MGM still has some rights of Spider-Man, but like not all the rights or something weird like that. Someone who used to work there, John Calley, comes to Columbia and works at Columbia, and he says, MGM, you guys are the people who do 007. Guess what? I can make it work to where I make a rival 007 series based on like this other stuff that's in the 007 books. So there would be 2 James Bond series happening, is what he threatens. And MGM is like, okay, we will give you Spider-Man all the way. You have all the rights if you don't do that.
That was such a bluff, right?
I think he wanted to do it. Like he announced, like, I'm doing this. I'm making my own 007. And it was like James Bond, not like my own secret agent movie. James Bond.
That's wild.
And so MGM's like, okay, we don't want to tarnish James Bond. It might diminish stuff, whatever. You guys just take Spider-Man. So now Sony Columbia has Spider-Man. And now, I don't always do this, but I just think it's interesting with this series, I gotta say. Here's a small list of the directors that were approached to do this. Roland Emmerich, Ong Lee, Chris Columbus, who passes to make Harry Potter instead.
Cool.
I think he could have made a Spider-Man movie.
Yeah.
Barry Sonnenfeld, Tim Burton, Michael Bay, Jan de Bont of Speed, M. Night Shyamalan, Tony Scott, and David Fincher. And David Fincher was interested in doing it if it wasn't an origin and it was about the night Gwen Stacy died, was the story that they told.
Okay.
Which makes sense that he would want to tell that. But then Raimi gets on board. I believe Amy Pascal is like, hey, this guy could be interesting. He comes in a meeting, like totally blows them away. And they're like, okay, you have the job. Well, he's so passionate about it. He's been a fan since he's a kid. Okay. He's the man for the job.
Okay.
So he's going to make it. And then David Koepp starts writing the script. And part of like all these crazy agreements is that they get to keep like all the scripts that have been made and work from those. So he takes Cameron's script and like edits it.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
So there's a lot of stuff in Cameron's script that is in this movie.
So with situations like that, Cameron got paid to write that then?
I would assume so, yeah.
Okay.
But I don't know.
Yeah.
He's like hanging out with the Na'vi right now. Nobody knows what's happening with him.
Even then?
And then the Koepp script was rewritten by Scott Rosenberg, and then during pre-production and received a dialogue polish from Alvin Sargent during production. Rosenberg removed Doc Ock from the script.
Okay.
Which is a good call.
Yeah.
You know. And then here are just a couple of people that they wanted to get for Spider-Man. Again, I don't always go into the casting, but the what ifs of this are crazy. We already talked about Leo. They talked about Freddie Prinze Jr., Chris O'Donnell.
I could see Freddie Prinze Jr.
Yeah.
I think that at the time, that makes a lot of sense.
Jude Law, Chris Klein.
No.
Ewan McGregor.
No.
Wes Bentley. And Heath Ledger.
I could see that.
Yeah, I could see that as well. But Scott Speedman.
Yeah.
He auditioned.
Yeah. Did he get the part?
No, thank goodness. James Franco tested for Spider-Man, didn't get the part. And Joe Manganiello.
Too big.
Try out for the part as well. Yeah, I think so.
That's such a weird that they even would look at him for that role.
Here's the thing: the studio wanted a more traditional action person.
Oh, they didn't want a scrawny guy.
So when Toby shows up, they're like, I don't know, but he impressed them so much with his audition, that they were like, well, this is the guy.
Yeah.
So kind of a stars aligned sort of situation. Here's a couple of Green Goblin people that could have been.
Gimme.
And there's one in particular where I'm like, that could have been pretty good.
Okay.
He could have definitely done it. So you got Nicolas Cage.
Okay.
Too wild.
Yeah.
John Malkovich.
Too wild even for Green Goblin.
Yeah.
Who?
John Malkovich. Interesting.
No.
Billy Bob Thornton.
No.
No. But this one I think could have done it. Jason Isaacs.
Who's Jason Isaacs?
Oh, he is the old owner of Dobby, of course.
Whoa. Yes.
He could have done it. That would have been pretty cool.
Yes.
Willem's so iconic.
Oh,
but I'm
yeah. But that's cool.
Yeah,
I think that's a
been
great potential. But in my mind, it is like no one else can be him. But that would have been interesting.
Defoe insisted on being in the costume and not having a stuntman do it.
Yeah, we know. And it was effing cool.
Yeah. Elizabeth Banks
demanded to be in the wig.
She tried out for MJ.
Okay.
Kate Bosworth as well, and Kate Hudson turned down being MJ.
Okay.
The crew wanted Kirsten to straighten her teeth, but she refused to do it.
Yeah.
Stan Lee at this point was too old to be JJ.
Yeah.
Very
weird cameo from him. But I know it's so like
that was when I first saw him, and it was like wow.
Pre cameos, pre Stan Lee cameos, but he has like a flash across the screen.
Yeah, no, I know it'd be so much more now. There's a scrapped. Well, they never shot it, but there was a plan to have Wolverine cameo in the movie.
Oof.
Very glad that didn't happen. And also there was a teaser trailer and a poster that had the two towers in them,
and
the World Trade Center. And then in 2001, of course, the September 11th happens, and they were like, "Ooh, recall the poster, take down the teaser trailer,
completely redo it."
And you can still see the teaser trailer if you look it up on. It's not like hidden.
Yeah.
But yeah, so
interesting.
And I think the scene that was in the teaser trailer, they would have probably kept working on that and having some semblance of that scene in the movie. Just cut. The kiss scene, Toby mentions that he was gasping for air the whole time because of all the rain coming down on him. And then this is so funny to me. I'm just reading it verbatim. Randy Savage refused a stunt double to do a mid-flip, so Savage did the stunt and injured himself.
And Micah is referring to the wrestler during the cage fight.
That's so funny. And then the scene where Peter catches Mary Jane and the food tray was done completely in camera with McGuire's hand glued to the tray. The scene took 156 takes in 16 hours to accomplish.
That sounds like one of those things where it's like you could have done it you could have done it differently, right? To like to make it. I know like it's not perfect and exactly the vision that they had. It wouldn't have been probably, but they could have done something else, right? So what does that mean? He was actually catching it?
He was catching it. Took him 156 times.
Good for them.
I mean, why not? Who cares, right?
I'm not mad.
No.
I just want you to get through this.
I'm almost done. I am almost done. The original Green Goblin mask was an animatronic.
Interesting.
Because in the comics, it's like a mask and it has expression and stuff like that.
Oh, that would have been interesting. But I think this is the right choice. Probably.
Yeah, I think for this time in history, it was the right choice.
Yeah.
I think like I would still like to see a Green Goblin that is more expressive in that way, and not because I do kind of think like this is also that point. It works in this movie because it's kind of one of the first movies to do it, but they're like, hey, here's this really crazy, colorful villain. We're going to put him in, like, armor. And then all of a sudden you see the line of 20 years later of superhero movies, and it's like, oh, yeah, they always, like, downplay these cool villains and make them, like, battle armor, which isn't that cool to look at. It looks really cool in this movie, I think.
It looks so freaking cool.
And I think that's where they kind of lost the plot.
Yeah.
They were just like, oh, make it look like it could be in the real world.
Yeah.
Like this and Batman Begins kind of like ruined that for the rest of movies. But yeah, because he's like a demon-looking guy, you know, in the comics. So I'd still like to see them do that, but I also don't want them to like CGI do it. So I don't know how you do it.
Just find out how they did it for this movie. And then build off of it.
Yeah. Well, but part of it was they were like, this doesn't look very good.
No, I'm just saying, like,
use
it as a template maybe, and then go forward.
And you know, it's interesting too that during this time, in like, they're so concerned that there's a character that you can't see his face.
I get that. Yeah.
And so that's why it was such a big deal that in the new Spider-Man, his eyes could move because it was like, oh, we can add so much expression to Spider-Man.
But as a kid, did you even think about it?
Didn't think about it.
No.
And I think part of it is they're so conscious about it. They're making sure that he's very physical.
Sure.
And doing things that encapsulate it, make it better. 2 more notes.
Okay.
Sam Raimi talks about how, they wanted a realistic New York City. They didn't want like a Gotham City kind of vibe.
Yep.
But it's like you do have this crazy colorful character floating around. So they were really intentional about shooting like what he called like magical buildings in New York and like shooting at like golden hour and stuff. So there's just like a quality of like almost like magical realism instead of just like flat New York City. And then there's just this colorful weirdo that's flying around.
Anyone listening who is a director of any future Marvel movie, take note of that.
I know. And then the final thing, it's just fun for context. Roger Ebert gave this movie like 2.5 stars.
Thumbs up. Oh, okay.
He didn't love it.
Yeah.
And he just said some stuff, and it's like, wow, you did not know how good you had it, Roger. If this was your complaint, he said, the film turns to action sequences that zip along like perfunctory cartoons. Not even during Spider's first experimental outings do we feel that flesh and blood are contending with gravity. Spidey soars too quickly through the skies of Manhattan. He's as convincing as Mighty Mouse. Consider the scene where Spider-Man is given a cruel choice between saving Mary Jane or a cable car full of school kids. He tries to save both so that everyone dangles from webbing that seems about to pull loose. The visuals here could have given an impression of the enormous weight and tensions involved, but instead the scene seems more like a bloodless storyboard of the idea. In other CGI scenes, Spidey swoops from great heights to street level and soars back among the skyscrapers again with such dizzying speed that it seems less like a stunt than like a fast-forward version of a stunt.
Oh, honey.
But fortunately, I know that Spider-Man 2, I think till the day he died, he contended was the best superhero movie ever made. And pretty much, if you read like any of his reviews about superhero movies,
he's like, wasn't as good as Spider-Man 2.
seriously, he'll be like, remember how in Spider-Man 2, like Mary Jane did this and it made sense. In this Iron Man movie, like this happens and they could have made it more like Spider-Man 2. So like
I love it.
Yeah. And those are my notes on Spider-Man.
Okay. Can we talk about the movie?
Okay. So this movie begins, and we have what every comic book movie should have, but none of them really do anymore, which is a great title sequence.
Yeah.
With animated webbing going everywhere and getting you in the mood to see this webhead.
Yeah.
But alas, that doesn't happen anymore. Do you remember what the Spider-Man 2 one is?
No, I don't. I'm excited.
It's just smart. It's smart for a sequel, particularly because they tell the story of the first movie through the title sequence,
like
so that you
don't
remember.
have to use your movie time doing that.
Yeah, it's so smart.
Yeah,
and we'll talk about it next week. So there's this great title sequence, really sets you up for it, and then we're immediately introduced to Peter Parker trying to get on a bus,
doing some voiceover.
Oh, that's right. Yes.
Basically, this is a story about a boy in love with a girl.
Yeah. And if somebody told you that it was a fun story, they were wrong or something like that. They don't necessarily need that voiceover.
I think because it's a comic book is fine. He's always internal monologuing. So
that's true.
I think it's fine.
Yeah.
And I get like you usually don't need voiceover.
Yeah. I think it's just like a of the time thing. Like they wouldn't do that now.
No.
But it's totally fine. But he's trying to get on this bus.
It's just funny, to do it then and not do it again until the end of the movie. Like, I almost thought while we were getting to the end, it's like, are they just not going to do voiceover at the end to kind of finish this thing off? But they did.
Yeah. But yeah, so
go ahead.
He's trying to get on the bus. And this is just a great way to show how the world is so against Peter Parker, because even the bus driver is laughing and he's excited that Peter missed the bus, or he just drove by it. Because later in the movie, he doesn't even stop for him.
I don't think he even got to the bus stop.
Oh, sure, but Mary Jane was in the area where it's, anyway, it doesn't matter.
She stopped to cry.
Yeah, that's true.
I think that the end of that corner was the bus stop.
Okay, but anyway,
this movie's perfect. You can't pick it apart.
No, that's not what I'm saying. I'm saying the bus driver is eager to not let him make his stop because the world is against Peter Parker.
But Mary Jane gets up and says, come on, we've had enough. Just let him on the bus.
Yeah.
And he's always had a crush on her since he was a kid. I mean, it's a story as old as time, Mary Jane and Peter Parker.
Yeah. And nobody wants to let him sit by him, all that stuff. You're already introduced to those dynamics.
Big nerd. Huge.
Yeah.
And when they show up to the Natural History Museum?
Something like, well, they show up, it's not Oscorp. They show up to some science museum.
Yeah. And then we are introduced to
Norman and Harry.
Yeah, Harry and Norman Osborn. Harry's been kicked out of a lot of private schools.
Yep.
It sounds like he's just a slacker. He can't live up to his dad's expectations. Why try?
Yeah.
And then Norman meets Peter and is very from the beginning
impressed.
like, I wish you were my son.
Yeah. And it's just great because in this movie, Peter Parker will lose his father figure, and then
Norman wants to replace that, basically.
Yeah, and then he could have. There's an alternate world where he's replaced with Osborn as his father figure, but of course Osborn becomes a Green Goblin and doesn't play up to that, live up to that.
Mm-hmm.
So he meets Harry. Harry's a preppy dope.
Yeah.
And
so him and Peter have always been friends, right?
In the movies?
Well, it seems like in the movie that they have been friends for a long
it seems
time.
like they've been friends.
What about the comic books?
Well, I think Harry Osborn gets introduced when he's in college.
Oh,
he goes to college, and I think it takes. Actually, I'm pretty sure they're kind of at odds with each other for a little bit.
I'm remembering stuff in the second movie. It's been a while since I watched it, but yeah, okay,
yeah. So then they're walking around. There's all these spiders everywhere in this museum, and
they're everywhere. There's webs everywhere.
Yeah, there's
they're
webs
loose.
everywhere. And so behind the scenes here, a lot of the shots of these spiders, first of all, are just real spiders doing real stuff. That they wouldn't do that now. I love that.
Mm-hmm.
They're real in this. And they have a real guy who's a spider wrangler.
And on the DVD special features, man, you've never met anyone so passionate about spiders.
Yeah.
And that's exactly who you'd want to be wrangling these things. And you know that they're treated well because you can tell this guy loves them.
Yes. And some of the designs, like especially the design of the spider that bites him.
Yeah.
They have like shells that they put on the abdomens, or they put like paint and makeup on them.
Safely, yeah.
These are like,
I learned a thing.
Legit.
Micah was watching the special features, and I wasn't really watching, but I had walked by, and it did glue me to the screen, this man, because he was so cute talking about spiders.
Yeah.
And I learned that spiders breathe like on their bellies underneath.
Yeah, so they had to make sure that they weren't covering that up.
Yeah.
Like under their abdomen.
That's
very
crazy.
Strange. Yeah. So anyway, I just think it's cool that like a lot of these spiders and the one that bites him, except for like a couple of clearly CGI spots, are real. And it took them a while, like a lot of takes, to get the shot where the spider lands on his hand.
Yeah.
So that's a real shot of the spider.
Oh man, it looks so good.
It's so amazing. Good. And like I think the only one shot that I can remember that's CG is the bite, but it's like so stylized that it feels like
I got no qualms.
Yeah, that's the right move.
Yeah.
So they're talking about all these spiders and they're explaining their powers so that when Spider-Man gets them, it's just great script writing because then when he gets it, we're gonna be like, yes that was that. They're explaining
this spider does this spider does this. These spiders here we have genetically modified to kind of put in every trait of every spider into one. And there's like, 16? And Mary Jane's like, no, there's only 15.
Yeah, 15 and 14. But yeah.
But one of them's missing. And that's the one that bites Peter. The rest is history. I love how quick, simple, whatever.
Yeah. And it just kind of, it does take a while for him to become Spider-Man, but it just kicks right off.
They're laying the groundwork for characters, though, in that time.
Yeah, they're not just stretching it out.
Yeah.
Whereas now, I think
this movie covers a lot of stuff.
Yeah, a lot of times they really stretch the origins, especially in TV shows. It's like for some reason the first season of TV shows is the character waiting to get their costume until the last episode.
Oh yeah,
why?
Yeah, I don't know.
So
that's why I don't watch them. Anymore.
I'm out on them as well now.
But he gets really sick, comes home.
But you're skipping stuff. We're not even there yet.
Oh, because this is being intercut with Osborn stuff. Oscorp stuff.
Yeah, so he's being visited by the board of directors, and they're saying...
As well as the U.S. Army? who have like invested.
Yeah. They're buying the tech.
Yeah.
So he's making like these battle suits, this battle glider, and then what they're interested in is this human enhancing drug that will make them like super soldiers.
Yeah.
And all of this, it's so great. I love this so much. And so the idea is...
Just hold on a second, though.
What?
Set-wise. There's so much green in the set.
Yeah, it's great.
Which is great thematically. And then it does feel like... but maybe this is because I want to complain about it.
Uh-huh.
But like in Marvel movies we have today, everything's just steel.
Yeah, or just glass.
And it's like, this has got a little bit of character to it. It's still very sleek and cool. Because there's a lot of money in this, you know.
Yeah. Well, it looks like a real place. I think that's
Yeah.
the main difference is like it was like designed. It's like a product. It's not just like someone walking into
it's a warehouse,
a blue room and there's nothing there.
Yeah.
And then they just add, like just like digital stuff that the character's interacting with on their computer, like digitally.
Yeah.
I don't know. So while they're there, they want this performance enhancing drug and they're asking I can't remember the scientist's name, but they're asking him like, how's it coming? And he's like, we got to go back to formula on this thing.
Because one person went insane.
When the rats were going insane. They haven't done human testing yet.
Oh, right. So one of them went insane, therefore it's not safe.
Yeah.
When Norman's like, shut up.
Yeah,
it's fine.
He's like, everyone, like 4 out of 5 dentists agree that we're ready for human testing.
Yeah.
And then we're introduced to Ben and May.
Yeah.
And they're just at home.
Mm-hmm. It's cute that they're introduced without Peter.
Yeah. It's the best. They're the best portrayal of Uncle Ben and Aunt May that we have so far. Even in Spider-Verse, which I think is the best Spider-Man movie, Spider-Verse 1, Aunt May is kind of cool in that one. And it's cool because of the way they adapted it.
Yeah.
But it's like, well, that's not that one's not my Aunt May though. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? But you see that Uncle Ben's kind of like down on his luck a little bit, but this is the great thing. It's setting up.
Well, it sounds like he's looking for a job.
Yeah, he's getting laid off. And so he's looking for a job. Even the computers need analysts these days, he says. And God said, let there be light. And voila, there was light. He's changing the light bulb, all of this stuff. But what I love about this scene is it's setting up already like the Parker mantra, which is Parkers aren't quitters.
Yeah.
Kevin Hines refers to it as the Parkers aren't quitters speech that happens in Spider-Man comics every once in a while, where it's like he wants to give up and then Parkers aren't quitters, Mm-hmm. And so just this idea that he's down on his luck, but he's positive about it, and Aunt May's supportive of him, and they're just going to figure it out. Mm-hmm. That's what Parkers do. Mm-hmm. That's essential to Spider-Man. Mm-hmm. So love all that. And then I think that's when Peter comes home.
And he just goes right up to bed because he's really sick.
Yeah. And by the way, it was just so funny because when I saw this movie, I was a kid, of course. And I just thought, this is what high schoolers look like.
Yeah, of course.
And it's just funny because watching it now, and I think even in high school, I was like, I don't know. But now I'm watching it and I'm like, wow, these are like late college age students. It's just funny to finally like see it for what it is. Mm-hmm. Like Joe Mangi, whatever his name is.
Manganiello?
It's like this guy is he's like older than Matthew McConaughey in Dazed and Confused outside of the high school. Like this guy needs to get out of here.
But at the same time, like for him in particular, that kind of character, you want mass. And I think it is funny that he looks older. I mean, for that kind of character, it's like I imagine that character's been held back once or twice.
Yeah,
anyway. Although in the comic books, I know that he's smart.
Is he?
Doesn't he? Don't they kind of make him smart? Because him and Peter are always fighting, or I guess they're just more of a physical thing. Yeah, he's just a bully. I'm gonna push your mic over.
No, please don't do that.
That's what's funny about that character.
Yeah. But I love it. I love it. It's like the good old days when they used to do that, and I like that now we cast more like age appropriate. Yeah. It was a thrill to see like a Spider-Man that actually looked like he was in high school.
Yes,
but he's still no Toby. We love Tom, but he's no Toby. I love
Tom, but I love Toby.
Yeah,
Toby's my Spider-Man.
So then, at the same time, it's juxtaposing the two. I love this. Peter is like having this crazy nightmare where he's becoming Spider-Man.
A fever dream.
Yeah, and his blood is changing and stuff. And Meanwhile, they do the human testing of Green Goblin that night.
Mm-hmm.
And
Norman tests it on himself.
Yeah.
To prove, like, it'll be fine.
Yeah.
Well, it's not fine.
Yeah.
Pretty immediately not fine. Kills the scientist.
And another thing I love, and we're going to be bringing this up a lot, so just prepare yourself for this, folks. It cuts to the computer, and you see on the computer that his muscles are getting bigger.
Yeah.
And I just absolutely know if they shot this today, it would cut to him, and we would see him CGI get larger.
Yes, and it's different than Captain America.
Yeah.
Obviously, because they purposely made him a tiny person.
Yeah.
A scrawny little dude.
Yeah.
For that dramatic change. But
it's
this is
just so good.
Yeah.
And it's creepy. And he kills the scientist.
Mm-hmm.
And he says, "Back to formula," and throws him against the wall and he dies. I just love it. And then he comes out and he's like, he's really hamming it up.
I bet that was a fun day on set.
Oh man, yeah. There's a great little footage of Willem visiting the Spider-Man 2 set, and he jumps in the Doc Ock arms and he's like goofing off for a little bit. It's great. So then Peter wakes up, and again, this is the kind of thing that Sam Raimi's just better than most of the people who are directing superhero movies. He's just very good at like economical, very easy to understand, like moving through the plot and character. Because you have Peter, and he doesn't go to school and tell some friend like, "Hey, I can't see I think my glasses are, whatever." He just looks in the mirror. It's blurry with the glasses on. Takes them off. He looks confused, blurry, confused. And then he sees that his body is like filled out, and he's
toned, and
that's all you need.
Yeah. And I think his Aunt May is like, "Are you feeling better, Peter?" And funny, like, "I think I'm feeling pretty good." I mean, he doesn't say that, but yeah, he's like, "Yeah, I think so.
I'm thinking I'm feeling good."
yeah. Keanu Reeves came that day.
And then let's see, catches chair. What is that? Catches lunch, webbing at lunch, catches chair.
Well, he goes to school.
Is
this when he sees Mary Jane? But kind of previous to this too.
Yeah.
We see that Peter has an infatuation with her, and Harry knows that.
Yeah.
But Harry pretty much capitalizes on Peter's hesitation and like, "Well, you're never going to talk to her, so I will."
Yeah.
And he talks to Mary Jane, gets a rapport going with her. And then I think it might be, and I could be totally wrong, but when we see that Mary Jane and him are walking to the bus stop, and she had just had a fight with her dad.
Yeah.
And she stops and is crying, and Peter kind of is like talking to her, but he's like 15 feet away from her. Like he's psyching himself up on what he's going to talk to her about. Especially now that he has like a weird newfound confidence that hasn't figured out yet. And I think it is that next scene. And then her friends roll up. She gets in the car with them, drives away, doesn't get his chance. Bus rolls by. He's late for the bus again, runs after it, puts his hand on the banner that's on it, and it sticks to his hand.
Off. Yeah, it's such a great effect, and he's confused, wiping it off. Catches bus. I think I wrote chair instead of bus. Okay. Catching bus.
Then he makes it to school.
Yeah. And he accidentally webs a tray, lunch tray, and then flings it behind him and dodges it, and it hits Flash.
Yeah.
And then he runs out of the room.
Well, before that, Mary Jane slips on some food, and he catches her.
156 takes, 16 hours.
16 hours for that?
Yeah, we talked about this earlier.
Did you say those numbers?
Yeah, 156 takes, 16 hours. That's what I said.
16 hours for that? I don't know.
Proof is in the pudding, man.
Yeah, the movie's perfect, but
first movie to make $100 million in a weekend. I think it was worth it.
I think spend 16 hours on catching all the things on the tray.
And then he runs out with the webbing. It's stuck on the door, and everyone's just thinking like, "Oh, Spider-Man," or they're thinking like, "Oh, Peter and his weird experiments." Now there is something to be said. I'm fine with it, but there is something to be said for like, why would students not make this connection once Spider-Man happens? Like, oh yeah, Peter Parker shot webbing at lunch.
Kids are dumb. You were a kid. Remember, you were dumb.
I was dumb. I'm not anymore. And then Flash shows up, and he is going to fight Peter Parker.
Yeah.
and we see the first example of spider sense. Everything stops.
I like to call it Spidey sense, but sure, spider sense.
Yeah, haven't we had a fight about this on an older episode?
I think we have had a fight about this.
Yeah, it goes by both. That's fine.
Remember, I had the Spider-Man skateboard.
But it's a great... It is a... I think the movies... I love the squiggles coming out of Spidey's head.
In this movie?
For the spider sense.
Just in general?
But you can't really do that in a live-action movie. That's why I feel like the Spider-Verse movies have the best portrayal of Spidey sense.
Yes.
But I as far as it goes in this movie, it's probably the second best.
How do they do it with Tom Holland? Or do they do it?
I don't think... They just do the slow motion thing, I think.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think. I know on the bus in his second movie, there's a moment where it kind of slows down and zooms in on his face, and it's clearly spider sense. But I love the... I don't know if it's Danny Elfman or if it's some sound effect, but there's like this kind of sound when it goes off, and that feels right to me.
Me too.
Where it's like your brain is like, oh, I heard like feedback.
Yeah.
Anyway, it stops and he's seeing like everything slow motion. He's able to dodge everything Flash, and then he punches him like down the hallway. A teacher drops more food on him, and someone's like, "You really are a freak, Parker."
That's what everyone gets from this. Is he still just a freak?
Yeah.
Every school needs a freak, and you can't. Every school has their thing. Well, we have freaks and geeks, Micah. So don't laugh at that. It's true.
That's true.
But every school needs their people to fulfill their cliques. So it's just like in Parks and Rec when Jerry left, and they were all kind of figuring out who's going to be the next Jerry.
Yeah, that is true. So then after this, he starts testing out his powers. Climbs up a wall. We see the cool hair grow on his fingers.
Yeah.
And the music is like dun 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 as he's going up.
And I do like that the camera turns in a way that it looks like he's just crawling across a flat surface instead of going up.
So good.
It looks really good. And then he pretty quickly he's figuring out the webbing thing. Like what? Oh yeah, that's when he's like, "Go web."
Yeah, well, first he jumps over all these buildings.
Yeah.
And there is like the wonkiest shot in the movie where he jumps and looks at the camera and is like, woohoo! And that one I'm always like, ugh. And I think even at the time I was like, I don't know why that's weird, but it looks wrong for some reason.
Yeah.
But he's jumping over the buildings, and then, he's like, go, web, go, fly. And now we have to talk about web shooters, Jordan.
Okay. So when I was a kid, this is the first and only Spider-Man thing I'd ever seen in my life.
Yeah.
And I thought it was so freaking cool and loved that it just came out of him. His body produced it.
Yeah.
Didn't even that's great. And then I remember when Amazing Spider-Man came out, that's when I found out that there's other versions of Spider-Man that he creates the webbing and has to wear certain things to do it.
Yeah.
And I immediately got stressed out thinking about it. And I'm like, what? That's so dumb. It's not actually dumb. But, it's just like, Toby's still better because he just makes it. His body just produces it.
Well, so this was controversial.
Was it? Had this never been a thing?
And so I did a little looking up, and apparently Spider-Man 2099 had or has organic web fluid. And that had premiered before this. And
Is that a comic book or a movie?
Comic book.
Okay.
He's the Oscar Isaac's character in Spider-Verse 2.
Isaac.
Oh, Isaac, yeah. And then I think in one of the late runs in the 90s, there was at least some point where Peter was squirting out the web organically. But
what do you think?
But it's it's always classically been the web shooters.
Okay.
Like if you're going classic. I think on the one hand, it almost makes more sense, like quote pseudoscientifically, that he would have organic web shooters.
That's how I feel.
Bitten by a spider.
Yeah.
This was my first introduction to Spider-Man, so it was fine and made sense to me. I will say when The Amazing Spider-Man came out, there was a trailer, and I'm pretty sure the first trailer showed the web shooters. And me and my sister were like, oh my gosh, we were so excited about the web shooters. And I don't think we were
Why? Because you knew that you'd be able to buy them?
No, I think it was just like, they're doing it. They're doing like the comic book. They're doing the web shooters. So it was exciting. But yeah, I'm kind of like, people do whatever they want. It doesn't really bother me either way.
Miles Morales, what does he do?
Web shooters.
Okay. I think, and again, that's what I first watched was this movie.
Yeah.
So that's like probably why I like it more. But it is just to me logical that it's like, if he's going to get bitten by a spider, the spider's been genetically modified to have basically every attribute of every spider that was there. That's, so it's a super spider. Why couldn't he then just make web?
Yeah. Although the only thing that I'm thinking about is if it really translates to him that way, he should be shooting it out of his butt, like they say in No Way Home.
Yeah, I know.
So on the one hand,
but he's a human.
Here's what I would say. I think like if I was gonna make a Spider-Man movie, it's no question I'm doing web shooters. I like the web shooters. I like the limitation. There's a lot of times in comics where it's like, I'm out of fluid. What am I gonna do?
Yeah.
And that creates a lot of stuff. But I don't hold this movie in contempt for that. I think it's fine that they chose not to. And Sam Raimi thought that it would weirdly be like more realistic than like a super scientific invention. Right? And that's kind of why he chose to do the organic web fluid. But it was a big change. That was I think people still talk about it amongst Spidey fans.
Well, at least it was in the comic books first.
Yeah, but only kind of loosely,
Yeah.
And not really like what you would think of.
Yeah, okay.
So
he shot it out of his butt in the comic book.
Yeah, totally. I think it's in the same way like in issue 100 of Spider-Man, he grows 4 extra arms and he has 8 limbs like a spider. And it's then the next issue, it's all resolved and he doesn't have them anymore.
Oh, okay.
It's like technically he had 6 arms and
I guess
2 legs.
That would be logical to think that, like, then why wouldn't he have 8 arms or whatever?
Yeah.
8 appendages.
But it's like one of those things where it's like, if you think of anything for a comic book character this far, they've probably done it.
Yeah.
But that doesn't mean that's how you should adapt it.
Yeah.
Right. But having said that, I don't have a problem with it in this movie.
Uh-huh.
All right, so he starts daydreaming and creating a costume. And one of my favorite funny things about Spider-Man, any version of him, is he's a master sewer and a master comic book artist.
I love that in movies. I don't know why, but I think it's always silly, but I can't think of a time where it's actually made me mad when someone just happens to be good at it.
Yeah. I couldn't do that.
I couldn't do that.
But he creates some beautiful suits. But I do like
some beautiful suits. I mean, primo.
I do like his first one though. His first one is like, okay, I could see a kid making that.
Yeah.
But he's doing that and he wants to buy a car. So he's like so excited to buy a car because he
just saw that Flash Thompson,
of course,
got a nice new car. So we can't skip over the little convo he had with Mary Jane. So he goes outside to take the trash at night, and Mary Jane runs out of the house yet again, having a fight with her dad.
Yeah.
And I like how natural it feels. She runs out and she sees him, and the first thing she says is, "Did you hear any of that?"
Yeah.
And he's like, "No, I wasn't listening." And then they kind of get to talking a little bit about what they want. They're about to graduate high school. What are they going to do? Peter's going to move into the city. Mary Jane's going to move into the city.
Yeah.
She's embarrassed to admit it, but she has acting aspirations. That's what she wants to do. That's her dream.
Yeah.
And of course, he's supportive. And
of course he is.
She asks him, what do you see for yourself? And what did he say?
What do you see for yourself? What did he say? I think he mentions wanting to take pictures.
Okay.
And maybe, does he mention anything about science?
I can't remember. But then she says, and what do you see for me? And again.
And he's like, you'll light up Broadway.
Is that what he says?
Something to that degree.
And then Flash Thompson interrupts the conversation with his new car. And then, that's when Peter's like, I got to get a car.
Yeah. By the way, it's so annoying. They freaking update the Apple software. Like, it seems like at least monthly. And when you don't update it right away, it notifies you like every hour.
Mm-hmm.
If there's a way to turn it off, maybe I think there is a way to turn it off. I should just turn it off.
Yeah. Or just install the update.
But it's annoying. I get tired of it. And then every once in a while, there's an update where it's like, wait, where's the notepad or something like that? And it's like something I use all the time is like gone.
Yeah.
I'm starting to get a little old with technology where it's really starting to be like, I can't handle this anymore.
Even computers need analysts.
Yeah. Thank you, Uncle. So then we get introduced to the Daily Bugle.
Yeah.
And something I noticed this time around, which I don't think I've ever put together, is the magazine.
Well, no, this
the
hasn't
paper.
happened yet.
Yeah, it does.
He sees how he can get $300 by going to a cage fight.
Okay, he sees that, and then it goes and shows us the Bugle.
Are you sure?
I have it written down.
Okay.
And then after that, Ben drives him to the library.
Okay.
So this is something I've never noticed before, but the Daily Bugle looks like the Inquirer or like the Sun Times or whatever. Like it looks like
paper.
a tabloid.
Yeah.
And I've never noticed that it looks like that before. Yeah. It doesn't look like,
a reputable,
the New York Times or something like that. So we get introduced to that. I think we see JJJ, of course.
JK?
J. Jonah Jameson.
Yeah. Oh, okay.
And we kind of get introduced to him. Now Ben drives him to the library.
Well, he wants more Spider-Man pictures.
Well, he hasn't become Spider-Man yet, so I think we just see the Daily Bugle. Oh, we just see it. No. This is what it is. We just see like accident at Oscorp, and it's a Daily Bugle newspaper.
That's what it is.
That's what it is.
Okay.
We don't get introduced to him yet.
So yeah, he goes to a cage fight because if he makes it 2 minutes in the ring, he'll get $300. $3,000.
Yeah.
And I love that there is a line of people.
Yeah.
Wanting to test the bone saw.
Bonesaw McGraw is ready.
I love it. I love that everyone's just foaming at the mouth too.
Yeah. Now, before we talk about the fight, though, we have to talk about the most pivotal scene in the movie.
Octavia Spencer?
No. His uncle drops him off at the library, and he's like, "Peter, you've been acting distant. I don't know really what's going on, but it's a time of changes. You beat up this kid at school. Well, what was I supposed to do? Just run away? No, you're not supposed to run away." He's so Uncle Ben. You just love it. And then Peter tells him off because he says, "I'm not trying to be your father." And he goes, "Well, then stop pretending to be." And he leaves.
But that look on his face where he's like, "I shouldn't have said it."
Yeah,
but I don't know how to fix what I just said.
Yeah, he's just a silly teenager.
Yeah, and Uncle Ben's just said, "I'll be back here at 10 to pick you up."
10 at the library.
Yeah.
Wow, they must. He's a bookworm for sure.
Yeah.
Then we get to the cage match.
Yeah, Octavia Spencer is a random cameo. Actually,
but she's not famous yet because remember we
watched Drag Me to Hell, and she's also in that movie
and says no lines in that movie.
She is an extra.
Yeah,
I actually wanted to look at her filmography.
I'm pretty sure her breakthrough is 2012. The Help. I think that's when.
That just feels like she's been around forever.
I know.
Yeah, she started in 1996.
Yeah. Okay.
But as not, big roles or anything. But yeah, crazy that she's in basically an extra in 2 Sam Raimi movies.
Yeah, I heard that this role was almost Tig Notaro when I was reading about it. Yeah.
Interesting. Cool.
So then we're at the match.
So yeah, he gets checked in. Funny interaction there.
Yeah.
He is then brought as he's walking down into the ring. The ring girls are like,
no.
Okay.
Well, we got to talk about Bruce Campbell real quick.
Okay.
So Bruce Campbell, frequent Sam Raimi collaborator, Evil Dead, Ash from Evil Dead. He is cameos in this movie as the ringmaster. Ringmaster?
I don't know.
Is it called that?
I don't know.
Anyway,
I don't care.
And he's like, I just love that he's like, "What's your name, kid?" And he's like, "The Human Spider." And he goes, "That name sucks." And then he's like, "The Amazing Spider-Man." And then he's walking out, and Peter's like, "He got my name wrong. It's the Human Spider." And then this guy shoves him, and he's like, "Just get up there, kid." So even the name is wrong.
Yeah.
Then he gets up there. And the ring girls. So go ahead.
Yeah, they're telling him off, telling him that he should just walk away now. He's going to get his butt handed to him, yada, yada, yada. The moment he steps into the ring, they lower the cage, and he is freaking out. He's like, "No one told me this was a cage match."
Yeah.
Bonesaw is basically like, I'm going to get you. You're going to die.
Yeah.
He does get several licks in on Peter, but I've always loved, especially as a kid, I just thought it was like so funny when he jumps up on the cage. Oh, just like a spider, just out of reach, and is looking down at him like, I'm scared.
You get down here, I'm gonna rip you apart. Yeah, they have this fight, and he knocks him out in like 2 minutes instead of 3, or whatever the time limits are.
1 minute.
Okay,
right? That doesn't matter. He doesn't last the 2 minutes, but he does beat the Bonesaw. And then he
doesn't last the 2 minutes, but he beats the Bonesaw.
And he gets paid only $100.
Yeah. And I know I'm going so far in detail, but another thing about Raimi, and this is like completely lost in superhero movies. Like no one does this anymore, and it is an absolute shame. But he is so good at extras and minor characters popping in ways that they do not in these shared universe movies. Because there's an element to these Spider-Man movies, and I think it helps that he's just in his own universe and there's no other heroes, where it feels like he really does have to save these people because no one else will. And these people are important, they've popped. Because I'm just thinking of like, there's a man that stands up in the scene and yells "Cage" as popcorn spills all over him, and I can like see that guy's face. Can I see a single like passerby that's not famous in a shared Marvel Universe movie? No. And I can think of like 20 people from this trilogy that are not.
So I feel like earlier in Marvel, they were doing that.
Yeah, and they just let it go. The universe got too big.
Specifically in Ultron, I remember specifically in the big fight scene, big battle scene, there was like a couple of extras that they kept going back to.
Yeah, that's true.
That they were like our surrogate audience meaning like, if they can save those people, they'll save everybody kind of thing.
Yeah. Well, that was something Joss Whedon was actually good at.
Yeah.
It failed in Justice League, but we don't need to talk about that.
No, we don't need to talk about Joss Whedon anymore.
Yeah.
But so I feel like in early Marvel MCU, they did that, and then it became less important, apparently.
Well, and
but it's like, who are they saving? If they're not giving the people a face, and that's just so critical. And they do.
James Gunn's pretty decent at it.
They do it in the new Thor movie because he's literally trying to save children that were kidnapped.
Yeah. That's true.
There is that.
But, there are points, but it feels like they don't pop in the same way. Like, you don't walk away from Thor being like, man, that kid, I liked him.
Well, you're not walking away from this movie thinking that.
No, not necessarily, but there's and not to go ahead, but like the second movie has a character that's not even from the comic books, Ursula, who lives in the apartment next to him, and she like has an impact in the movie. And then I don't know, I just think he's really good at making the minor characters and the extras seem important and part of the world in a way that's memorable, in ways that the other movies do not accomplish, hardly to any degree. And I think as a comic book reader too, I think that's kind of the problem with the shared universe, which I do love, but at the same time, it's like, I kind of wish Spider-Man lived in his own universe and couldn't like go to Captain America or whatever. Because there's something great about like, he's the one who has to save these people, and it makes it more personal. And on top of all that, I think in comic books and in the movies, sometimes you just reach this point where, like I just finished reading this run where it's like, they're having this huge gang war and this huge fight in Central Park, and you're like, is this affecting anyone who lives in New York, or is it just these superheroes and villains like fighting on a green lawn somewhere?
Yeah, it feels like it's gotten to that point. I am trying to remember. I do feel like in the Tom Holland Spider-Man movies, is it in the first one where like he goes to that pizza guy all the time, and like that guy's shop gets like burned
Subway,
down?
I think he has subs there.
Yeah,
not Subway, but
yeah. So I think they have sprinkled stuff in, but it's just not as. But I do feel like with a Spider-Man movie, that is critical.
Because it's friendly neighborhood.
Yeah. But so critical.
You brought up some good examples that disprove what I'm saying. Maybe it's because I've just rewatched these movies much more.
I think especially with some of these Marvel movies that have become so cosmic.
Yeah.
It's in some ways it feels like I don't really know what the stakes are anymore, because, and this isn't necessarily a criticism, but it's like this is not even on my planet.
Yeah.
But
it can be hard to make that work.
Yeah. I'm just thinking about, but not all of them have to do that too.
Right.
Not all of them. Because sometimes the story doesn't make sense for it to do that. But then you have movies like The Eternals, where the world is literally going to end because a god is going to like swallow it up or whatever it is. And it's like, no one knows this is happening, right?
right.
Especially because they like fight in a remote area of the world. And it's like,
okay.
So basically, no, they're not saving anybody.
Yeah.
Is how it felt.
Yeah. Oh, man. What a bad movie. So then, oh no, my notes jumped to the end here. The guy, so Peter says, like, you shorted me money, and he goes, you fought him for 2 minutes. Dad said 3, so you're lucky that I'm even paying you that. And then he's like, but that's not what you said. And he's like, I missed the part where that's my problem.
Mm-hmm.
Then he goes out and
waiting for the elevator.
Yeah.
Here's a commotion back in the room where the guy paid him. And then this guy runs out with a bag of money and a gun, just robbed the guy.
He steps aside.
And he steps aside to let the guy in the elevator. And the guy's like, why'd you let him get away? And he's like, I don't see the part where that's my problem.
And then he goes outside, and Uncle Ben's been shot by a carjacker who winds up being the burglar.
And fun that the car is the Sam Raimi car from Evil Dead.
Yeah.
What's in all those movies.
The thing I'm like panicking really quick because I'm like, wait, how does it happen in the very first origin of Spider-Man? But I do like how it's a little bit more connected personally in this movie than it is in the comics. Because if I'm remembering right, and I could be getting confused actually, but it's like a burglar ripped somebody off and he could have stopped them, but he's like, nah. But I like how it's personally connected to him, where it's like an act of vengeance a little bit, where he's like, this guy ripped me off, so I don't care if he gets ripped off.
Yeah, especially right after Uncle Ben told him. Is that wait? Oh no!
Oh yeah, with great power comes great responsibility. Yes, of course.
He tells him that in the car, and of course he doesn't know what's happening to Peter. But he does say, "With great power comes great responsibility." And of course, this is all new for Peter. He does not know the vastness of his new abilities. So he does, hasn't even thought. His first thought is, how can I make money using it? Not
right.
How can I use it for good?
Yeah.
This is, as is the classic story, the thing that motivates him into, how can I use this for good so that one day I maybe can make reparations for what happened to my uncle.
Yeah.
Because his uncle dies in his arms.
Yeah.
And then he hears that the guy's like where the guy's driving, chases to meet the guy, ends up in a warehouse with him, chasing the guy, fights him, and then the guy. I know it's not nothing very detailed, but he realizes who the guy is. It's the guy he led onto the elevator, and then the guy falls out a window, but Peter didn't necessarily stop him from falling out a window.
Yeah, well, it's pretty quick. I wouldn't say that he even let him fall. It just happened fast.
Yeah.
That's what I.
But I'm just saying, Peter Parker 6 months from now, would have been able to stop it. Would have been able to catch him.
Yeah,
with experience.
Oh, sure,
of being a superhero.
Yeah,
but yeah.
Which sucks because it means they can't adapt the issue where the burglar comes back to the house after getting out of prison, and you find out that there's like gold in their house, and that's why he was there in the first place.
Okay,
that's real.
Yeah,
and you're like, oh, okay.
Out of ideas, you guys need help.
Yeah. So, and again, another thing, like when he starts swinging, it's very scary for him, but it looks great.
Mm-hmm.
And I've said this many times on our podcast. I think we've just there's so many superhero movies. And again, and this happens in the comics too. We've kind of like lost the powers element to it, where in this, it feels significant when he gains powers and what he does. And in a lot of the movies now, it's just like, oh, this person punches blue, this person punches purple, and this person punches green. And I don't really know what that means. I mean, even in Captain Marvel, the Marvels, they spent so much time with their powers, and it was still like as the movie went on,
I don't understand. Yeah, yeah.
And it's like you spent so much time distinguishing them, but I don't really understand like how this affects this villain who just punches hard. You know what I mean? Like some of that stuff just gets so lost, and it's so nice that it's like very clear in all of the Spider-Man movies.
Mm-hmm.
So then during this time, Green Goblin goes to the testing of the other site where the other company that's making a mech suit.
The U.S. army like pulled out of Oscorp and they're going with this other company and they're testing what they're doing. I love that person is actually just like in a suit that looks like a death trap.
Yeah.
And as it lifts up in the air to demonstrate what it can do, the person's blown up.
Yeah.
And if that's not enough, the Green Goblin blows up everyone in the bunker too.
Throwing his pumpkin bombs in there.
Yeah. Is that what they're called?
Oh yeah.
He's called the Green Goblin. He's got pumpkin bombs.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah. And yeah, so that happens, and the explosion turns into graduation hats, and that is a Sam Raimi joke if I've ever heard one. And then we see that they've graduated high school. Harry and Peter are gonna move in together.
Harry got like top science boy award.
Peter did.
Sorry, who did I say?
Harry.
Oh, okay.
And Harry and no, wait, they're not dating yet, but
No.
they're yeah.
But Norman is like telling Peter like, "You're so great."
Yeah, if you want to work at my company and stuff
Just
like
tell
that.
me. Yeah.
And he's like, I want to,
Well,
make it on
later.
my own.
He says that,
oh, you're
but,
right. That is later. But now we've covered it.
Yeah.
And then we have just like this great Spidey montage where
Has Green Goblin started hearing voices yet?
I think he may
He's had a little
have.
inklings of hearing things, but hasn't had a conversation with him yet.
Well, there's that scene where he's like laying on the ground and the people come in and they're like,
Harry comes in and is like, "What's wrong? What's wrong?"
yeah, and the couple of
that was the
Oscorp
day
people
after
come
he blew
in.
up everybody.
Yeah,
The
and they're
morning
like the
everyone's
the
dead.
scientist was found murdered at Oscorp last night, and he's like, what? He was killed?
Yeah. Okay.
So then we have the Spidey montage where he is now stopping thieves and helping, courtesy of your friendly neighborhood Spider-Man. A lot of fun gags. They interview Xena Warrior Princess.
Mm-hmm.
There's she's the one who says, "Guy with 8 legs sounds hot."
Yeah, there's some people that are like, he's a freak. There are other people that are like, he helped me. And then other people are like, I'm not so weird, stupid rumors floating around.
Yeah.
So on
he
and so
stinks
forth.
and I don't like him.
Yeah.
And again, it's like, oh yeah, it's about people. It's about the neighborhood.
Mm-hmm.
Which then cuts to J. Jonah Jameson.
Yeah.
Who is like, why can't anybody get me pictures of Spider-Man? What's going on? What is he? A camera shy? And he says this great, like, if he doesn't want to be famous, I'll make him infamous.
Mm-hmm.
So there's like a reward to get Spider-Man photos.
Yep.
And just a little fun side note for any comic reader, Robbie Robertson, who is his like editor in chief or whatever in that scene, he does a great Robbie Robertson.
The guy that he's talking to?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah, it's a good adaptation of that character.
Yeah.
Oh, and Ted Raimi's in this movie, his brother. And he's
Sam Raimi's brother, yeah.
Yeah, he's popping in and he's like
that scene later where whatever the guy's name, let's just call him Ted. And he's like, someone get me Ted on the phone. Yeah?
Yeah.
He just stares at him like, how did you get here so fast?
Their back and forth is hilarious.
Yeah. I bet. But that was fun times on set, just watching JK do his thing. Everyone probably trying so hard not to laugh.
And he's chomping on the big old cigar.
Yeah.
So then, this is one thing I noted, and I want to see how it plays out in the next movie. I've never noticed this before, but Peter says he was late to work and Dr. Connors fired him.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought that he met Dr. Connors in the next movie. So there might be a little error there.
Well, maybe he got his job back.
Well, but he's a professor in that movie. Which he would be a professor and a scientist, but
just wait till we watch it.
Let's wait till we watch it.
But yeah, Peter keeps showing up late to stuff because he is fighting crime.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah. And it is funny that when he tells Harry that he lost his job, that Harry is like, why are you always so late to things?
Yeah. Great.
I think their apartment is good. I like the set.
Yeah.
Because Harry and Peter are living together in the city. The apartment seems somewhat cramped. And it's like they've got that like loft. They live in like a renovated loft warehouse. Yeah. And so there's like some nice stuff. They definitely have a nice TV. They have a nice couch. But like it's like I said, it's cramped. The kitchen is like you walk into the apartment and it is a kitchen. Like the stove is like an inch away from the door.
Yeah.
And then when Harry goes up to his room, like the only thing between his room and like the hall is an unfinished wall.
Right.
So love the set.
But I will say, like, I'm pretty sure, Dad's bankrolling this.
Well, no, I agree. That's why I'm saying it's still, I think what does look nice about it makes sense because of Harry.
Yeah.
So
I wonder
it gets my
how
seal
much
of approval.
Well, like New Yorkers watching movies like this. I
yeah.
wonder if they're like, that'd be $1.5 million or whatever, or like that'd be $10,000 a month of rent.
Yeah.
All right, so we're at the Unity Festival,
Mm-hmm.
and Peter's taking pictures. We see that Harry and Miss Watson are together, maybe, definitely. So that's all happening, and then Goblin strikes.
MJ's gonna meet Norman.
That's right.
But yeah, so this Unity concert.
Yeah.
Green Goblin shows up, throws pumpkin
bombs.
Yeah. And MJ
turns the board of directors into skeletons. A trick he does not pull again. A trick he should pull again.
That was wild, and I loved it, and it was so ruthless.
I know. It's pretty like... And
I don't remember that happening.
What does he say? Back to formula? And throws it at them? Or maybe he says something else.
I don't remember what he says. But MJ is going to fall off the balcony.
Yeah. Very cool
Harry
set.
gets knocked out. Awesome set. So cool. Spider-Man's bouncing off of the giant balloons, which I'm sure as a kid, I was like, when can I do this, please?
But even before that, he does something, and I know...
when he returns into Spider-Man.
When he rips off his shirt.
Yeah.
You do not know the amount of times I, as a child, did that. When I'd have like a button shirt and I would set it so that I wouldn't break any of the buttons, but then I'd go running and I'd go, go.
So satisfying.
It's the best. And now that we have these button flannels, sometimes I still do it. Mm-hmm. Going to save the day.
Mm-hmm.
And I always thought I loved the little juxtaposition of like, he's in this crowd and everyone can see him, but no one's paying attention to him.
Because it's New York City, bro.
I love it.
So, yeah, Spider-Man comes and saves MJ, gets rid of the Green Goblin.
Yeah. It's a wonderful scene, and this is like the terror of the Goblin
shot in golden hour. Love it. Love it. I love it. It looks great.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah, all the daylight stuff in this movie looks really good.
It's not just like bright point, basically so bright blue it's a white sky, and then you have concrete. Like the buildings were gold.
Yeah.
Essentially, like it was really a lot of yellows and oranges because of the sun. And then, I mean, the Unity concert in itself was so colorful.
Man, that does make a huge difference.
It makes a huge difference. Wow. And then on top of that, your villain is green and your good guy is red. So there's just it's just so much color.
Yeah. And then we have what I have always thought was a wonderful one
Does Spider-Man get cut in this scene?
No. That's later.
Okay.
No, Jordan. It's not a super long shot because there are cuts in it, but there's one long shot where Norman is talking to the Green Goblin in his mirror. Yeah. And I've always been so impressed by Willem in this scene.
Yeah. And we had realized that in the same year, Two Towers came out.
Mm-hmm.
So 2 movies in the same year of someone with split personality.
Yeah, and
done so
pivotal
differently.
Scene that's like... Yeah. I mean, it's a little more pivotal in Two Towers, of course.
Yeah.
That's like so iconic. It's crazy.
Yeah.
I think the Norman scene is more like iconic if you've seen the movie, 100 times. Yeah. Like we have.
It looks so good.
It's very cool.
I've always loved the voice.
Oh, I mean, Willem, come on. Then at the Daily Bugle, they try and name the Green Goblin. And J. Jonah is like, let's call him the Green Goblin. And Ted Raimi says, how about green mean? And then he's like, get out of my office or something like that.
Doesn't he at one point say Green Goblin? He's like, no, not that.
No, that's
what about the Green Goblin?
That's in the next one, I think, with Doc Ock. He didn't do it in this one because I was paying attention to it. Okay. I was. Because I think in the next one he says that, and Jay keeps saying other things. I think he even says Doctor Strange, which is why when Sam Raimi got announced, everyone was posting that scene.
Oh,
because it was like
that's fun.
Would
not have known that was a superhero when I had seen that movie.
Yeah, I don't think I would have either. And then the Daily Bugle is attacked, and now I always kind of forget that he attacks the Bugle.
Absolutely forget. So, he throws his cigar out the window. Funny. And then it gets thrown back, and then the Green Goblin explodes in to the building, and Peter is there when it happens.
Yeah, he's collecting a check.
And it's because of what was written about him, right? The Green Goblin.
Oh, no, because he sees that there's pictures being taken, and he's like, who's the photographer who's taking pictures of Spider-Man? Because that's his lead to figure out who Spider-Man is.
Yeah.
And then Spider-Man shows up. He webs JJ, which I love, and he says, quiet, Mom and Dad are talking.
Does he say that?
Doesn't he?
I don't know. It's been a couple days. I'm just, I hope so. I hope he says that.
And then Goblin goes, sleep.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, that's right.
And Spidey falls down, and he catches him, and he goes to a top of a building, and he basically...
Spidey falls down, and he catches him.
Green Goblin catches him.
Oh, okay.
And he takes him to the top of this building, and he says, people love a hero, but what do they love more than that?
So his idea is, I need to get Spider-Man because I want to be in cahoots with him.
Yeah.
That's right. Yeah, they're in a very Batman-esque... To me, it just reminds me of it. When Batman's talking to Commissioner Gordon. Rooftop.
Yeah.
That's just... Rooftops only superheroes can occupy. Comic characters can.
Yeah. Super comic hero characters.
Eliminate the word super. But yeah, he's trying to get him on his side.
Yeah, and he says this whole thing, which is, we've seen time and time again. What do people love more than a hero? They love to see a hero fall. Mm-hmm. So why not join me and we could take this city? We could rule the galaxy as father and son. And this is when he tells him that he's his father. And he says no.
Heavy.
Man, I'm fighting my phone here. It's a low battery, but we're going to make it. So love all that. I just wrote Goblin Suit. I'm not sure why. I think in this scene
cool. In particular, we were really just taking it in because it is a lot of just him.
Yeah.
And you see that Willem is talking. You see that he is under the mask.
It's
and
so great.
It just looks so exceptional.
It was a real bummer in No Way Home that they decided one of their big changes was going to be that Willem Dafoe doesn't wear a goblin mask in that movie. Remember, he doesn't
wear anything?
I think his head is out.
I mean,
that's a mistake.
Today is not the day to test my memory. And we're on the third day of recording, so that makes it even worse.
So then Peter tries to catch up with Mary Jane. It seems like some time has passed. And he finds her outside of her diner. Finds out that she hasn't really made it in the big city. I might be conflating two scenes. But anyway, she goes down a dark alley. And she's attacked by muggers. Good thing.
You are
Peter
conflating
Parker.
Two different scenes.
I am.
Because that's a daytime scene. And then he runs into her after an audition that doesn't go well.
Yeah.
And he's being very encouraging. And she's like, trying to be like, come to dinner with me
Harry and I. And he's like,
like, no, I can't. And you can tell she really wants him to.
Yeah.
She's got a little thing for him.
I love how he says, I was in the neighborhood. And he's like, I took two buses and a taxi to get here, or cab, yeah.
So supportive, so sweet.
Yeah.
And she's like, I get it.
Yeah, they're starting to get a little bit of a rapport.
Yeah. And so she goes in a dark alley and is gonna be mugged and worse by 4 dudes. And Spider-Man shows up and saves her as it's raining really hard. Hollywood rain. Rain only Hollywood can produce.
She goes, I think I may have a stalker. And he just kind of leaves because his face mask gets torn off.
No.
Yeah, it does.
When?
In the fight.
How? She pulls down his mask. What are you talking about?
It gets torn off, and then he sees that she's about to see him, and then he jumps up under the building, and then she's like, wait, and then he puts it back on.
Okay.
You were like, I'm gonna get you, Micah. So then he hangs.
I had the skateboard.
He hangs upside down.
And she's basically like, how am I ever going to thank you?
She rolls down the mask just enough, and they make out. Core. And this is one of the iconic kisses.
Yeah.
I mean, is there, at the very least, is there a more iconic, I would say maybe a more iconic kiss in the 2000s up to now? But even beyond that, for sure, there's not even close to a more iconic kiss in a superhero movie, right?
No. Oh my gosh.
I can't even think of a second place.
Do they even kiss anymore in superhero movies?
I don't think so. But they were so proud of the fact that they had a sex scene in Eternals. Your eyebrows just twitched. You're like, that movie you're testing me to remember? I just remember it was a talking point.
I do remember
Chloe
that.
was like, this was very important to me that this was in the movie. And I'm like, when I watch it, I'm like, yeah.
And then at the end, you have Harry Styles in a CGI dwarf just hanging out. Okay.
Yeah, it was so important to the integrity of that story. Not that was not the problem.
I think you maybe missed the point if you were really trying to work that in there.
Yeah. My point on that movie is that everything I think she thought was really important to have in it, and she probably could have cut all of it.
Snooze fest. But let's not talk about it. We've already brought it up in this episode.
We have, like 4 days ago when we were recording. But it's such an iconic kiss. We love it. It's great. I think when I was a kid, it was gross. Now I see it and I'm like, come on, baby.
It was gross, but it was still like, good for you, Spider-Man.
Yeah, he's almost got the girl.
Yeah.
And then there is a big fire. Yeah. And Spider-Man
saves a baby.
But
there's someone still in there. And a cop is about to arrest him because a call has been put out that we got to arrest this guy. Yeah. He's a vigilante. He's bad. And so this cop's like, I gotta take you in. And they hear more screaming. And Spider-Man's like, let me go save this person. And the guy's like, okay, but you come back here after. And it gives me chills when the cop's like, okay, go save that person's life. We can't.
Yeah, and he's like, you come back. I'm gonna be right here. And he's like, I'm not coming back. And he's like,
oh my gosh, I love it so much.
Go, Spidey, go.
Yeah,
I don't think he says Spidey, but he's like, come on, go do it.
Yeah,
I got chills too this time.
Goes back in the building, is trying to find the person. It is the Green Goblin.
Yeah, he's in a little like grandma outfit. And he's like, he's so theatrical. I love this. And then he pulls it back, and the punching in this scene is so like visceral and cool. Yeah, very Indiana Jones. Like they're taking the sledgehammers to the leather coats. And then he does his like razor bats that he's throwing at him.
Yeah.
And
this is when he cuts him.
Spidey's jumping,
right?
And then he gets cut.
Okay.
No, it was a bike messenger. Knocked me down. And I always forget that this is, in fact, a Thanksgiving movie.
I mean, barely, but okay.
No. This is right up there with Planes, Trains, and Automobiles.
Okay. Norman is there. Yep. Aunt May is there. MJ's even there. Norman's meeting MJ for the first time. Yeah. It's a little awkward, but it's going to be a good time, you know. When
it is funny that the Goblin decided to stage this whole thing, like right before the Thanksgiving dinner, because he almost would have been late too if they kept fighting any longer.
Oh, this happened right before?
Well, yeah, because Spidey's coming back from that. He had to get like a can of beans or whatever.
I think I just assumed it was the next day.
No, because his blood is still dripping.
Oh, okay. Again, I mean, memory. It's
a movie, and I love it, but I'm just saying it's.
Has funny. Norman been fired from Oscorp yet?
Yeah,
I think this just happened. Yeah. So like the board completely ices him.
Yeah.
So he's going even crazier.
Ice to meet you.
Okay, so
that's a bad Arnold. Okay, so that's a really bad Arnold.
So yeah, everyone noticed that Peter has a cut, and he says it was a bike messenger. But Norman's like, I know what that's from. You use Spidey.
But I know we're trying to get through this last part.
We have to. Just say it. I
just love when he's when they hear him come in, and then they're like, oh, he's upstairs. He goes up there, and then he's hiding on the roof.
Ceiling.
The ceiling, yes, you're right. And then blood drips down, which looks suspiciously like ketchup. And then
is it
Norman? I don't know. It just doesn't look like blood.
Oh, okay.
And Norman looks up, and then he snuck out to the balcony as he's under the balcony.
Yeah.
And then he's at Thanksgiving, and Aunt May smacks his hand when he's like about to eat the candied yams.
Yeah.
She's like, "Not until we pray," and he gives her this look.
Mm-hmm.
And
he sees the thing about Peter.
And he's also sharpening knives.
And then he's like, I gotta get out of here because of what he's just discovered. And Harry chases after him and is like, you promised you'd be here for Thanksgiving. Like, it's really important to me that you meet MJ.
Mm-hmm.
And then his dad's basically like, she's only after after your money.
Do what you want.
She's just like your mom. That's all they want. That's all women want.
Yeah. What he says, do what you want with her, then broom her fast.
Yeah.
I've never heard the term broomer.
Does he say that?
Yeah, he says broom her fast.
Just kick her aside with the broom.
Oh, yeah, that makes sense.
And they hear everything.
Yeah.
Real awkward Thanksgiving because then MJ storms out.
They haven't been to one of our Thanksgivings. I'm just kidding. They've never been that awkward. Yeah, and she's like, thanks a lot for sticking up for me, Harry.
Mm-hmm.
And he's like, you heard that? I'm a big dope.
What?
And then Aunt May is praying, and she's saying, Our Father who
At
art
home.
in heaven. Yes, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our debt as we forgive our debtors.
Oh my gosh, we don't have time. I'm sorry, we don't have time. So Green Goblin explodes into her house and kidnaps her.
And he's like, finish it!
He doesn't kidnap her.
Finish it! And
but
she's
he
like,
harms her.
deliver us from E! I mean,
talk
so
about thinking
Sam
that
Raimi.
it's the devil. So yeah, she is taken to the hospital. Peter rushes there. She's gonna be okay.
Yeah.
But Green Goblin has really sent a personal message to Spider-Man.
Yeah, he knows who I am,
Yeah.
you know? And then him and MJ have this heart-to-heart where she's like, I don't know if I'm into Harry. I think I'm in love with someone else, and you're going to think I'm such a little girl about it.
I love it. It is so teenage.
Yeah.
She has a crush on Spider-Man.
Yeah. And
then she says, and he's like, oh, I actually know him. And she's like, really? Have you guys talked about me? And he's like, well, you did ask me what I thought about you.
Yeah.
And he basically is like, I think you're the best person in the entire world, and I love you so much. Blah blah blah. Aunt May, listen, she hears it, she's awake, and she smiles, and I love it because right before that, remember, she tells him like, you're losing your chance if you don't tell her you like her now. You will never have a chance with her.
No, she tells him that afterward. Remember?
I thought she tells him that before.
Because then he's like, you heard that? And she's like, everybody knows.
Oh, that's right. That's right.
We've known since you were a little kid.
Yeah.
It seems
even
that
MJ knows. Come on.
It seems like you're the only one who doesn't know.
Yeah. Very sweet.
Yeah. And it's just so great. And this is a theme, especially in these first two Spider-Man movies, that I think is mostly lost now. It's just like secret identities mattered so much.
I know.
And
especially by the end of this movie, it's so critical.
It's so integral to
so much.
Spider-Man, and even now, again, in comics,
they do.
Too many people know who Peter Parker is again.
True, but they do hold. I think they do a good job in the Tom Holland one.
I think they do good. I mean, they made a whole movie about his identity, so they did do good on that.
Yeah.
But comics, they did this whole reset thing, which maybe we'll talk about on a different episode. Just to reset it so that like nobody knew his identity and he wasn't with MJ, so that they could like kind of have a fresh start.
Yeah.
But now I personally feel like I feel like 50 people know who Peter Parker is. Like that's too many people.
Yeah.
So he's got too many friends like in the Avengers and stuff like that. It's cool when it's like just a handful of people.
Mm-hmm.
So then we're already at the bridge. See, look at that. It's bridge time. We're at the George Washington Bridge.
So Green Goblin kidnaps Mary Jane, brings her to the bridge, and there's a bunch of kids on a whatever that is.
Cable car.
No? Yes?
I think so.
The thing that goes across the bridge.
Yeah. Is this the same one that Joe Gatto was on Impractical Jokers, saying "suck it" to all the different bureaus of New York?
I sure hope so.
Man, he was tonight's big loser on that episode.
Okay, so Green Goblin tells them, you have to choose between her or the children.
Yeah,
and he drops both of them.
Let die the woman you love.
Drops both of them. He's gonna do both. It's Spider-Man. He's gonna try. So he gets MJ and then swings over to the cable car, and he's got both of them. And he's like, MJ, you got to get down onto the car. She's so scared. I love it. I love it so much. And she's starting to go down, but its webbing is kind of starting to come loose.
Yeah.
And she's freaking out.
It's so like tactile.
Shut it.
Yeah.
And then this thing happens that I forgot, and again gives me chills. Green Goblin shows back up to wreak havoc.
Yeah.
The people of New York City on the bridge.
You mess with one of us, you mess with all of us.
And they start throwing stuff at the Green Goblin. Love that. Where is that?
Yeah, what's funny is I've heard people actually like make fun of that, and it's never struck me as odd.
Are you serious? People are stupid. That's the person where someone needs that. They're part of the bystander effect. They're part of the problem.
Well, and I've also, maybe I'm just projecting this on there, but I do kind of feel like September 11th happened.
Yeah.
And then a year later, less than a year later, this movie came out. And I think there's an element of like, New York is bouncing back.
Yeah.
We can fight the bad guy. We're going to be okay. And I think this movie kind of, at least in that moment for New York and America, was kind of like, it's going to be all right.
Of course, we're not from New York. We don't know that for sure. But I like to think
it's in my blood, though,
Okay.
I'm a New Yorker because I love pizza. New York style, of course. A deep dish is good too. Anyway, Now, I have to wonder, and if there's any of you who are listening who were fans of Spider-Man when this movie came out, went and saw it, like, and had read Spider-Man and stuff and were familiar with it, I wonder if people, they get to this bridge, he's got the girl. I wonder if there were a lot of people that were like, oh, man, they're doing the Gwen Stacy thing with MJ in this movie. I would think that people are thinking that might happen in this
I guess that makes
movie.
Sense, yeah.
And he's dropping her and everything, you know? And then pretty quickly you see that he's gonna save her. And even the barge helping him put the cable car down, is also I
love
so
it,
cool.
man. I love it.
Yeah,
it's so good.
But then they get thrown into this other. It's just a great sequence. It's so tension filled. Roger Ebert was totally wrong about the sequence. It's incredible. He gets thrown into this old like dilapidated building, which is just incredible.
Oh, the set that set is like whenever I think of this movie, I think of that set.
Yeah, it's iconic.
So
it's iconic.
Nice.
And
all the ivy
and the bricks and the wood.
Yeah.
And they're just like, again, it's like very visceral fighting that feels like, man, Spidey's gonna lose it. And a pumpkin bomb explodes by his head and it like rips off half his mask.
Yeah.
And he like flies back and he's like,
yeah, looked pretty good.
It looks fantastic.
So then Green Goblin is trying to sweet talk Spider-Man while also getting his hover.
His
what's it called?
Hang glider?
Okay, is that what it's called?
Yeah.
His hang glider is gonna impale
you have me
Spider-Man.
panicking in my head
where
I'm like, is it called that? Yeah, it's his hang glider. Yeah.
Okay. It just doesn't hang on it.
And this is a classic. Well, you're hanging in the air.
Fine, but yeah, he's gonna impale Spider-Man.
And this is what happens in the Gwen Stacy story. With Goblin, he tries to get the. This is like not shot for shot, but it's like the same sequence where Spider-Man jumps back, his Spidey sense alerts him, and Goblin is impaled by his own glider and dies.
Wow!
And then for 25 years, Norman Osborn was dead.
Wow.
Which is wild, and one of the worst decisions in comic book history, I think, ever, is that they brought him back. Even though they've done good stories without him, but there was something so permanent.
It was so final about it, yeah.
Yeah, and when you wait like 20 plus years, it's like, oh, I guess he really is dead.
Yeah.
And the way they brought him back was crazy. We don't have time to talk about it, though.
We don't, Micah. But
I'd
Peter
love to talk about anyone about it anytime.
does do the kindness of taking him back home.
Yeah.
To his home.
Yes.
And for Harry to... it's all very tragic.
Harry.
Yeah. Blech. But Harry does see him at home. His dad is dead. To be continued on that.
Well, yeah, and it just sets up a lot of great questions, especially when there weren't the sequels yet, where you're like, now Harry is like anti-Spider-Man, but his best friend is Spider-Man.
Yep.
It's so great.
Yep.
It's great tension. That's great Spidey.
So, are we at the Norman's funeral?
Yeah.
So they're at his funeral, and while there, Peter visits Uncle Ben's grave.
Yeah.
And MJ comes up to him and is like, "Hey, Peter, guess what? I love you."
Yeah, and he's like, "I can't right now.
I can't do that for you.
I can only be your friend." She gets totally friend zoned.
But he's basically like, "I love you too, but I can't be that for you."
Yeah, because I got too much crime to fight, and I don't want you to get hurt. You almost got killed because of me, and I can't let it happen again.
The classic Spider-Man conundrum.
It's so good.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember when I watched all the special features when I was a kid, and it was before I'd read a lot of Spider-Man comics, but it's so true. The best way to get Spidey in a bad position is when you give him a choice. And he has to choose between, like Mary Jane and these cart full of kids, or like if he doesn't do this thing, then Aunt May's gonna die, or whatever. Those are like the best Spider-Man stories.
Yeah,
where it's like there's just no way you can do both, or
Yeah,
and usually he does, but sometimes he doesn't.
Yeah. So what's the voice? And then the movie ends with some voiceover. I just don't remember what he says.
Yeah, he's just like. He
Thanks
basically
for watching, guys.
He does say like, "I'm Spider-Man," but it's a lot better than in Aquaman 2 when he looks at the camera and he drops the mic and goes, "I'm Aquaman," and throws the mic down in front of like the UN. Remember that was how Aquaman 2 ended.
Oh man, it's so dumb but so good.
And that's the end of Spider-Man 1.
Yeah.
It's so good.
Stop wringing your water bottle's neck.
The only note I would give this movie, though, and I was like, when we were getting to it, I'm like, oh yeah, interesting. He does have the closure with Aunt May on the hospital, but there's no like final scene with Aunt May like at the funeral, which might have been nice.
Yeah.
Like just maybe a comment beside Ben's grave or something.
Yeah. I bet there is something and it got cut.
Probably. And it totally works. It's still a 5-star.
Yep.
Come on. We did it.
Oh, we did.
Right?
Right?
Right. Well, let's figure out what we have, like where this episode is, because we're recording in a very odd order, because we do not want to get tired of those sweet, sweet apes. So this episode is coming out on, June 14th.
Okay.
So if you go to patreon.com/Micah, we did our episode on Blade Runner 2049. So go listen to that. I'm sure that is great. And I maybe have a show in this month or maybe next month at the Medford Commons.
That's promising.
Yeah, I don't know. And then you probably have some stuff in June, right?
I don't know yet.
Okay.
And if I do, I think it's already happened.
Okay. All right. Well, I guess we can promote them in those episodes that we haven't recorded yet. That's perfect.
Okay.
All right. Thanks for listening. We'll see you next week. Bye.